Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Today's Monday, June 26, 2023, and this is a regular meeting of the City of Asbury Park Planning Board. Chairwoman Kurzak, can you please call this meeting to order?
Yes, this meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press by publication of the annual meeting notice and posted on the municipal bulletin board and municipal website. All notices are on file with the board secretary. Official action may be taken on the following matters before the board. Fire exits are located in the east and west sides of the council chambers as well as the back of the building. I will ask anyone with a cell phone or other device to kindly silence it for the duration of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded by APTV. Please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now take roll call. James Bonanno.
Here.
Councilwoman Clayton.
Here.
Eric Gallipo.
Here.
Jim Henry.
Here.
Mayor John Moore is absent. Daniel Shinameo is absent. Jennifer Sauter.
Here.
Michael Goonan.
Here.
And Chairwoman Barbara Kurzak.
Here. All right, the first item on the agenda is Asbury Partners, LLC, North Eats Food Truck Court.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jennifer Porter, and I'm an attorney with CSG Law located in West Orange, New Jersey, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Asbury Partners. This application is hopefully a relatively simple and straightforward one. We are here tonight in connection with the food truck court, which is owned by Asbury Partners and operated by a new entity this year known as 1405 4th LLC, which does business as Squid Force. Because of the change in the operator, we sought permission from City Council and are before the Planning Board this evening seeking a few operational changes in connection with the food court. There are no changes that are proposed to the site plan that was previously approved. And just to go back a little bit in terms of the history, the food court was originally approved by the City Council and then by the Planning Board in 2015. It's been operating seasonally every summer since then. It was renewed for another 6-year term in the first six-year term expired at the end of 2021 and was then renewed again last year. So we had appeared last year in front of both City Council and the Planning Board and were renewed for another 6-year term. In light of the fact that Madison Marquette is no longer the operator, we were seeking some additional changes to the operations. Specifically, we are seeking 3 things this evening. The first one is a slight change with respect to the hours of operation. While the exact hours will remain the same, the time frame for operation will change slightly. So rather than operating on a 7-day-a-week basis from Memorial Day through Labor Day, we are seeking to operate from Friday through Sunday fully from Memorial Day through June 30th, and then starting July 1 through Labor Day to operate on a full 7-day-per-week basis. The second change that we're seeking to do is with respect to overnight parking. Some of the board members who were here last year may recall that we had a discussion at that point in time on why that we felt it was appropriate to allow the food trucks to remain overnight. Since last year, ultimately, the City Council felt that it was, at the time, they had concerns with respect to the trucks staying there for long durations of time. And when we went back in front of City Council this year and expressed the same concerns with respect to it being a hardship on the food operators having to find an alternate location to park every night, having to move their vehicles, and a lot of other considerations, City Council agreed and recommended in favor of that change to remove that condition that prohibited overnight parking of the trucks. And then the final and third consideration is with respect to having staff, specifically an on-site representative, between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. If this board may recall, originally there was a requirement to have on-site representation during all hours of operation. That was modified last year to allow for frequent site checks at all times except for the window of 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. And during that time, they wanted to have a representative. Unfortunately, due to the fact that summer temporary help or having staffing be there to conduct these frequent site checks, again, is something which is considered or which has been a problem for the applicant. And so what they're asking of the board this evening, which again is supported by City Council, is to allow for frequent site checks throughout the day. So they would have an obligation essentially to have a book where they would do site checks, they would clear the site of debris, and you'll hear testimony on all of this evening because we do have a representative from the new operator who's here to testify on these 3 points, to allow for there to be frequent site checks in lieu of having someone be there, because essentially all that was happening was they were having a representative there, they were sitting in a chair and getting up once an hour to remove any garbage. And so ultimately they felt as though that individual could be moving around between this and other locations in the vicinity, conduct the frequent site checks, keep a log of these events, and then report that specifically back to the city so that there would be a record that it was being maintained. So with that, if the board has no questions for me, I'd like to call our first and only witness on behalf of the new operator. It's Mr. Michael Carr, and he is the Chief Operating Officer for 1405 4th LLC.
And he'll speak about all 3 of these?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, folks. How are you?
So Mr. Carr will be testifying as a fact witness, specifically as the current operator in connection with this facility. So could you just state and spell your last name for the record?
It's Michael Carr, C-A-R-R.
Mr. Carr, if you
Yeah.
would just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Carr, you're a representative of 1405 4th Avenue LLC?
Yes.
How do you spell 4th?
F-O-U-R-T-H.
And it's 1405 F-O-U-R-T-H Avenue LLC.
Yes.
Who are the officers
Just me.
of the LLC?
Yes.
Just you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the only principal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, 1405 4th Ave LLC is doing business as Squid Force, correct? Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Carr, could you please explain your role in connection with the North Eats Food Truck Court?
My wife and I own Betty's Icebox, and we've had a food truck that's been vending at North Eats for many years, on and off since the very beginning. And that's it. And now I have a lease from iStar for operating the location.
Okay, and what is the basis for the current amended site plan application? Meaning, are there any changes that are being proposed to the actual physical parameters of the food truck court?
No.
Okay, so the specific changes that we're seeking this evening are solely with respect to the operations?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please, before we get into those specific changes, describe the nature of the use? So where is the food court located?
The corner of Ocean and 7th, right by the circle down there.
And that would be block 4502, lot 1.25?
Sounds right.
Okay, and what would be the minimum and maximum number of trucks allowed on the site?
Minimum, I believe, is 2 operating, and 6 is maximum.
Okay, and what is the typical size of the trucks on the site?
Probably 20 by 7, up to 25 by 8 maybe, by 9 feet tall.
And is it correct that the current hours of operation are from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, and specifically that is during the summer season, running approximately from Memorial Day through Labor Day?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And so the first change that you were seeking in connection with this application, which was also previously discussed with City Council, is that rather than operating on a 7-day per week schedule for the entirety of Memorial Day through Labor Day, you would be seeking a change to allow you to operate just on weekends. So from Friday through Sunday until June 30th, and then 7 days a week from July 1 through Labor Day?
Correct.
Okay. And what would be the reason for that request?
It just doesn't get busy enough to really justify being there all week until 4th of July weekend. It's just slow during the week.
Okay. And then specifically in connection with the next operational change, the city and the planning Planning Board had previously removed a requirement that a representative be on site at all times, except for 4 p.m. till 9 p.m. And you're seeking to remove that requirement currently?
Yes, please.
Could you please explain the basis for this request?
I think it's there's not enough work there to justify having somebody there at all times. We do have people from the trucks policing the area, making sure that everything is good, the owner-operators. But it's, there's a lot of downtime. There's really not enough to justify having somebody there all the time.
And as the operator, you'd be willing to make a commitment that frequent site checks would be conducted and that any trash which is on the premises would be removed?
Yep, 100%.
And that also, per the requirement that was imposed last year, you would continue to maintain a log for the city that notes when the site was cleared of any debris?
Sure.
Okay. And city council supported this request?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, you're also seeking to remove the limitation on overnight parking of the food trucks, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And could you explain to the board why this request is being made?
I feel like I guess the problem with leaving the trucks parked overnight was that I think that it was a bad look to have a truck just parked there and then not open the following day or closed for several days in a row. We think that it's more practical to, if somebody's going to open on a Saturday and then open on a Sunday, it's more practical to allow them to stay plugged in there. It's difficult to get in and out, and we'll have to have two drivers, one for the support car and one for the food truck. It's difficult to get in and out. Environmentally, the truck starting up and running around is not great. I don't know what else.
And these are local residents who own the trucks?
Yeah, mostly it's all owner operators and a couple people that live in the city, and then all Monmouth County.
And currently, in order to have the trucks removed so that they wouldn't be on site overnight, you would have to find alternate locations for them?
Yeah, in the past, we've had to pay for overnight parking in different places because people can't always store them where they live. There's ordinances, et cetera. So.
And what you were saying before about having two vehicles, so you mean that, for example, if the food truck were to require a replenishment of any particular type of food or type of other equipment, they would need to then bring their personal vehicle as well to the site, have a second person so that they could run off site to do that refill in connection with continuous operation during that time.
Right.
So allowing for this allows them to bring that vehicle and then have it more at their disposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. At this point, no further testimony is here, and so this would conclude our testimony, but we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
The planning board members, anyone have any questions?
I do. I've got a few. Mr. Carr, how many of the trucks on that site will you own?
Only one.
Only one?
Yeah. Actually, it belongs to my wife.
Well, and the other trucks are under contract with you?
Yes.
Other owners, okay.
Yeah.
I have some concerns. Last year, and I haven't been there many times, only there a couple of times, but from my own observation, there was a lot of debris on the site. And the garbage cans were overflowing.
Right.
I understand what your concerns are. Would you be willing to commit to having somebody from your firm or whoever visit the site once an hour to clean up?
I mean, I think that I could commit to that on the weekend 100%. During the week, I don't think it's necessary. Whatever you guys decide is fine
I think
with me.
that what Mr. Henry is really concerned about, and I think that a lot of us are concerned about this, is that you know what the point is. The point is that we don't want overflowing garbage cans.
Of 100%.
Right.
I don't either. No way.
When we see that, we're walking by because we live here.
Right.
We see that, then it's like, well, what happened to the hourly visit?
Right.
So how can we come to something that we can accept that, is it every hour? Can the owner operators be the ones to do the cleanup.
Yeah.
To ensure that there aren't overflowing garbage cans. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking.
I agree
correct?
with you. I agree with you 100%. There's no worse look than having garbage all over the place. I'm over there all the time, cleaning everything up. And I mean, I can give you a personal guarantee that they won't be overflowing. I do have the people that work on my truck keeping an eye on things. Johnny Pork Rolls, AM Foods. They got other people that are there. I have an agreement and a relationship with them. I consider them partners. And we all want to have a good presentation of the site.
How about giving us a proposal that you can be comfortable with concerning the garbage pickup and litter on the site?
I've contracted to Lisa to pick up the garbage. We have bins on site and extras if one becomes full. And I'm down there. I mean, what would you like as far as a proposal?
Well, if you think once an hour is too intense, what do you think is reasonable?
I think once an hour is great during the weekends. I think that's fine, and I can commit to that 100%. And during the week, I think it's as needed. I go down there 2 or 3 times a day if somebody's open down there, even if we're not vending or if it's inclement weather or whatever, and check up on it and make sure everything's good. I mean, I can commit that to you.
I admit that my observations are very limited.
Okay.
And so I have a very limited experience, and I'm concerned from what I saw last year. And I understand that it's a new operation this year, and I certainly understand that. And one of my other concerns is concerning the removal of the trucks on the site. If a truck sits there for 2-3 weeks at a time, how about flat tires, that kind of stuff? How about dead batteries? I certainly understand where you're coming from, but I'd certainly like some sort of a guarantee too that these kind of things that make the site look unattractive do not occur.
Okay. The trucks do move periodically. They won't be left there for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. They'll probably move at least 2 or 3 times during the week to dump the gray water tanks, to refuel. It's maintenance-wise, it's a good idea to run your truck and drive it around a little bit to keep it going, and everybody knows that, and everybody does do that. In the case of a flat tire, I mean, I guess that would be something that we would have to police on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But that would be unacceptable to me as the operator. And it's not like I'm not just going to put people on there. This is so far I've been emptying the garbage personally. I do have some kids that are going to come in and help me out, but I care about it.
I certainly understand that this is a new operation.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned from what I saw prior that.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that was a concern to Asbury Partners as well. And so I think that that's something that we wanted, and we appreciate that the board recognizes that we have a new operation, we have a new operator who is willing to make these commitments, but that hopefully, it won't be viewed in light of past considerations because that was under an entirely different operator.
Well, also that if we do happen to see that there are things happening there that don't adhere to these agreements, then our zoning officer would have to come
Exactly.
in and provide tickets and
Yeah.
do what they have to do.
Yeah.
And then we'll know next year, perhaps, that the agreement has to be more firm.
Of course.
So this is not only for now, this is for years from now.
Right, and
So-
exactly, and this application, it was subject to 15 conditions, so we're seeking to modify 3 of them, but there are very specific conditions in terms of who has to be operating, how many people have to be operating, where they're situated on the site. There is the specific requirement in connection with the log, frequent site checks, so all of those things are built into those conditions and are absolutely there in terms of the city's right to enforce that at any given time. And that log is actually, the responsibility is to turn that into the city for purposes of specific enforcement so that they can verify that these site checks are being done.
Okay.
And I have one other question of you about this application. We're 8 years into a temporary situation. and I don't expect you to be able to answer this at the moment, but when is temporary going to become permanent? You know, we have a situation here, and as I recall from the initial application, the premise was that the 6th Avenue Pavilion was going to be renovated and to be used as, in part, providing food on the boardwalk, where the food court was going to be temporary until that was done. Now, we're 8 years into a 12-year program. When's it going to happen?
So I unfortunately do not have a specific
I
answer to that
understand.
question. I wish I did. I would have been happy to share that with you. I know that there are a number of varying projects going on in and throughout the waterfront redevelopment area, specifically dealing with various aspects. This is a Green Acres parcel. There's certain restrictions in connection with what it can be used for. Yes, the applicant did apply for a temporary use here, but it is something that is and has always been consistent with the goals and objectives of the waterfront redevelopment plan, which is why it's been allowed to continue as long as it has.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question. The situation as I see it is that when the temporary approval was granted, it was under the premise that the 6th Avenue Pavilion was going to be renovated and that the temporary use would only be temporary. And so what I'm asking is to provide the city with a time frame to complete the complete the renovations to the pavilion, so that we have an idea when the end date of the temporary use is going to occur.
So in connection with that piece, just in speaking with our client, that's tied to a separate project
I
which
understand.
deals with other separate individuals from this particular piece and this particular work.
I understand that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Planning board members? Any questions? Anything from our professionals?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
So if a vehicle is going to remain overnight, does that mean it's going to be operating the next day?
Yes,
Okay, so only vehicles that are overnight have to operate the next day?
yeah.
That'll be.
Unless there's weather pops up in the next following day or something like
Yeah, I mean,
that.
obviously there's certain.
The intention
certain things.
is,
But
yeah,
okay, so it's not like vehicles are going to be parked there, not operate for a couple days, and then maybe just operate on the weekends?
No.
They're not going to be there Monday to
No.
Sunday and only operating Saturday, Sunday?
if that's the case, they have to take their truck out of there.
Okay, and that's part of your agreement with your vendors?
It is.
That should be one of the,
Yeah, I mean,
Approvals.
I think that's important.
It's very important, because it's not a good look to have a closed truck on site when on
Yeah.
a beautiful day.
Yep. any other questions?
That's it.
Other questions? Any questions from the public? No? Okay. Any comments from the board? All right, so it sounds as though that one of the requirements is, and I don't think that we mentioned it, I'm glad that Mr. Beekman brought it up, was that the trucks have to be open the next day if they're going to stay there. So they cannot be there long periods of time. Weekends, every hour. I think that on weekdays, I think that we'll probably be okay with as needed, but you know that there's a lot of people watching.
Yeah,
And if this changes, if
Yeah.
something goes wrong here, you'd have to come back.
yeah,
And, got a lot of boardwalk walkers here.
good.
Mr. Carr, is that hourly inspection on weekends realistic?
Weekends and holidays, no problem. Yes,
Is it?
yes,
Or is
100%
it-
realistic.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we can put that in, that's weekends every hour and holidays every hour on the weekdays as needed, but everything has to be
One question.
clean. Sure, go ahead.
Are there ever any issues, I know you're just first operating, but are there ever any issues where the garbage is overflowing that you can't accommodate?
no,
And how often does Delisa come to pick it up?
twice a week for garbage.
And that's
I have,
never an issue with
No.
pickup?
And if it does become an issue, then I can add another bin. I have 4 bins on site for garbage and 3 for recycling.
Okay. And encourage your patrons to throw their trash out instead of,
Yeah,
so Jim doesn't
Yeah.
have to see.
yeah, it's never good to have garbage blowing around down there.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the request based on the modifications that we asked or the restrictions that we requested from, can I get a?
Move to approve.
Second.
James Bonanno,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clayton,
Yes.
Eric Gallipo,
Yes.
Jim Henry,
Yes.
Jennifer Souter. Yes. Michael Goonan,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Barbara Kurzak.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
By the time June 30th is Saturday. Friday, rather. So,
Just in time.
Okay. Next up is 637 and 701 Lake Avenue. All right, just so that we're clear, you guys have it until 8:45, until we have another application coming right behind you.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Hi, everybody. Steve Goen from Giordano, Halloran, and Cecil representing the applicant. As the board may remember, we were here previously on April 17th, 2023. Got through a portion of the presentation. After that, we had a DRC meeting with the board's professionals, primarily to talk about some improvements that we made to the plan, particularly with respect to the parking lot that, as you saw last time, had really no improvement. So we think we improved that quite a bit with this version. So I'm going to go through that with Gary Dean, and Gary's also going to talk about traffic and circulation. I have Jason Hanrahan from Mode, who is going to walk us through the architectural plans and the floor plans for the building that you saw last time. We went over a little bit of the architecture last time, the exterior, but Jason's going to talk you through the floor plans. And then Christine Cofone is our professional planner. We have a variance that we're seeking, so she's going to talk about the variance. We did get 2 review letters dated June 22nd, 2023 from Insight and from Clark Caton Hints. We can comply with the recommendations in those review letters. We're going to try to hit those points throughout our testimony, and then at the end, we'll go through and just if there's anything that we missed, you can let us know. So I'll introduce Gary Dean first, and he can give his qualifications. Good evening.
Dean, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And if you could just state your name and spell your last for the record, please.
Certainly, it's Gary Dean, D-E-A-N.
And your credentials.
Yes, I'm a graduate of Lehigh University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey and have been so since 1989. My license is current and in good standing. I've appeared and been qualified as an expert in traffic engineering and related matters in probably 400 to 400 different planning and zoning boards throughout the state. And I had the honor to serve as Asbury Park's Board of Adjustment traffic consultant in the recent review of the breakwater application. We have a branch office on 54 Olin Street in Ocean Grove, so I am very familiar with the traffic conditions at the subject property and circulation and the like.
Great. So, again, I assume the board accepts.
And all licenses are current?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Barbara, swear them in.
Absolutely, go for it.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Do. Thank you.
Thank you. So we were fortunate enough to have Gary on our team for this application because after the last hearing, obviously there were a lot of questions in terms of the parking lot design, and the board specifically asked that we clean that up a little bit and make some improvements, add some green space, that kind of thing. So Gary actually he actually designed this parking lot that you see, so I'll have him talk to you about that and some of the improvements that we made and the fact that we've gone from non-compliant to compliant based on Gary's recommendations. So Gary, you want to tell them what we've done?
Thank you. As I was present at the prior hearing, I understood the board's comments with regard to the design of that parking lot, and in particular, looking for opportunities to, I'll say, bring it into contemporary design practice, look for opportunities for landscaping and a better organization. So literally, as I was sitting here at the hearing, I was doodling, and then over the course of the ensuing week or so, refined that concept to what you see before you. Could I try you to zoom in just? And I'm referring to Lot 11 in Block 2404, otherwise known as the parking lot. Under the current configuration, there are only 27 parking spaces. I would call it not particularly well organized. And in looking to make better use and more efficiency of the lot, the first opportunity I saw with regard to pedestrian safety access was to close off the Lake Avenue driveway. That obviously makes for a smooth and continuous pedestrian experience from Bond Street continuing to the east. It also nets the city 2 additional on-street parking spaces, which, given the revenue structure, has some minor financial benefits. But what it does is it allows us to then create perpendicular parking spaces on the easterly edge. Instead of right now, it's just an aisle that aligns coming up from Lake Avenue. So once we do head-in parking to the building to our east, we then create a parking aisle that runs around the we'll say middle of the parking field. You'll see at the quadrants, at the corners, it creates simply where the 2 parking spaces come at angles, it creates opportunities for significant landscape opportunities. The exhibit you see before you has street trees and related improvements at all of those, which not only will provide shade, but will provide a significant landscape amenity. As a result of the DRC meeting, although we had designed it to have 2-way flow, I think it was a constructive critique to create a clockwise traffic circulation, which was an enhancement above and beyond the scheme I developed. And that allows all of our parking spaces to comply with your ordinance. We have either 9 by 18 or 8.5 by 18. Because we have one-way parking aisles, in my opinion, the aisles could work for 2-way flow, but again, with one-way traffic, in my opinion, it certainly allows that relief for efficiency. And we picked up 25%. We picked up 7 parking spaces. No, it was 8 in that overall parking field. And as a result, the application is now variance-free with regard to parking. So challenge accepted by the board, and certainly I think the benefits are greater efficiency, a safer design, as I indicated, the net increase in on-street parking. So we actually pick up 10 parking spaces if you look at it in total. It does mean all of the site access is via Bond Street, but it is a one-way street, so as traffic is coming south, the people who are parking here would turn left and have no conflict with anyone who is leaving the parking lot, in that they would be using the exit, which is closer to Lake Avenue. Beyond that, the other improvements, aside from landscaping, are the lighting, and that was a concern the board had. So all of the lighting fixtures have been reduced in height, and we will be using 2700 Kelvin, which is a yellowish, it looks like a household bulb, and it doesn't have the stark white type light. So it certainly has a nice aesthetic effect. As we then focus on the balance of the property on Lot 1, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the handicap spaces and the access, and working with the architect, the handicap ramp that switches back to meet the grades was redesigned. And as a result, the length or depth of those parking spaces has picked up by 2 feet. So they're now the width, either 11 or 8, but they are now 20 feet deep to ensure that there will be no overhang off of the property and onto the sidewalk. You'll also note an effort, at least, of some enhanced landscaping on the very northerly edge or the top edge of the one handicap space to provide better delineation and screening from the alley. And then we've also worked with the architect, and I know Mr. Sullivan isn't here tonight, but there was some concern about the treatment for the columns leading out of the building, and it's not my domain, but I will represent that has been changed as well in response to those comments. The other changes are largely, I'll say, cosmetic. There's been some landscaping added, if you don't mind zooming to the west. As we go to the west to the neighbor at the very southwestern edge of the property nearest the alley where the ramp is that leads up to the lower tier of the building, that has had additional landscaping treatment as well. And beyond that, as I indicated, I think the highlight was the effort to substantially focus on parking and make those improvements so that, again, we did eliminate that variance. And that is all I have in the way of the...
I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you touch on the handicap spaces?
I did.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
They're deeper and they have an extra cushion, so yes. And again, on Lot 1, the lighting fixtures have also been similarly changed to match the parking lot light. And we'll leave it up to the board and your professionals. There was one question about architectural lighting standards, not something that looks sterile and functional, but whether it's a gooseneck, as the board, whatever your preference is, the applicant will endeavor to provide a decorative fixture, and that's the intent. They will be downlit. They won't cast illumination, off of the property at an excessive level. And that's all. Those are the changes, but I think they were significant and in line with what at least I interpreted the board wanted.
I don't have anything further for Gary. If the board or professionals have questions.
I think that we had some concerns about the screening on Lake Ave and on Bond. I think it was on Lake that we were concerned about what was happening. I know that there's a couple of feet of cement, and then there's something, you were going to put something else on top?
Correct. The discussion was, and again, it's subject to what can be embedded in the top of that wall, but whether, there's no room for landscaping, but it would be a screening that would be decorative, whether it's aluminum, whether it's, subject to.
Are you going to speak to it, or the architect, or someone else?
Well, we
The
can do it.
plans
We
have
can
a
do it.
detail. aren't
Sure.
they?
Yeah, I know you need a detail. I don't know that we have one.
No, you have a
But-
detail.
Yeah.
Oh, do
Pull
we
up
have
the site plan.
My apologies.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, Gary, if you were going to handle it, or if it was going to be on the architecture side, because they're in their plans.
It's in Mo's plans.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, because that's what's on your rendering.
In your rendering, are you going to be doing this? Those are modes.
Right. So our architect can speak to that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
when, all
architect
right,
can
so
speak
we'll
to that.
hold off on that.
Yep.
We also talked about some more screening on Bond, but I think that we were talking about more as far as plantings and whatnot. And I believe that you did add a couple of trees there and some bushes.
By taking advantage of the redesign of the parking lot layout, you'll see particularly in between the two driveways.
Right.
That mass of that, call it separating island, and I know it's difficult to see on the rendering, but there is a street tree featured, and underneath the canopy are notes, I can't read them from here, but they would have ground level shrubbery and similar plantings for that screening.
I know that we had discussions about impervious surfaces and around this and obviously the other building. Is someone going to speak to what it is now with the new proposal?
It's if I'm not mistaken, it's 100% impervious today. So by putting in the corners the way we did, which will all be grassed, I can't give you the exact number, but I can say that the impervious coverage is being reduced.
It's 100% right now.
Yeah, I think that last time when you testified, it was like 76% impervious. I didn't know if, that where we're at. I don't know where we're at now, because that was in April. So if somebody knows.
The
what-
parking lot currently is 100% impervious. Correct. Oh,
No, and in April, when you testified in April, I have a note here that said it was 76% impervious. So, with the proposal. So whatever it is now, I just want to know what it is. So if somebody else is going to speak to that, that's fine.
Bear with me 1 second.
My notes say it was 76.7% today and 74.8% proposed last time.
That probably does, I guess that includes the building.
Right,
That
so
must be the whole
let's just
thing.
clear.
Yeah,
How much
for clarification, on the, we'll say the building lot, Lot 1,
Yeah,
that currently the impervious coverage today, and I'm reading right off of the existing site plan, is 76.7.
okay.
And that impervious is being reduced to 73.8. On the parking lot, it is 100% impervious, and we're bringing it down to 91.45. So not quite 10%, but certainly, again, a step in the right direction on both lots. We're decreasing impervious.
What was that number again? 90?
My apologies. Sorry.
10%, your report says 10% is required.
To be landscaped area.
Right, and so we're close.
We're at, what is that,
Because
Most of what
8.6?
they're converting will become landscaped area, yes.
Right,
What was that, 91 point?
91.4.
91.4.
Thank you. Yeah, it's featured in the bottom right-hand corner of what's on the exhibit, but that is the zoning summary for Lot 11.
Does anybody, any planning board members have any, oh, I'm sorry, are you finished with your testimony?
I'm finished unless you have other questions, but
Let's see if the board has any questions regarding the testimony.
Talk about EV parking.
we have checked with the Department of Community Affairs, and I remember that being an issue at the last time. Because the proposed parking lot exists, DCA has said there's no requirement to add EV. It's only for new construction, not restriping. I will say, as market forces dictate, ultimately, the owner, as more tenants say, can you get EV parking? I think that problem or issue will solve itself. But for the moment, no, there's no code requirement for those, and none have been proposed.
We just disagree strongly with that take.
But isn't it our ordinance, I mean, are you referring to our ordinance or DCA?
I got this directly from DCA, and I specifically asked about this circumstance, and
The statute says, anytime there's a preliminary site plan approval,
Yeah.
you have to comply. This is a preliminary site plan approval.
and
You have
again,
to comply, and he's saying that there is no need to, there is nothing to comply to.
There is, he's creating new spaces for a new use. It's a preliminary site plan approval. That's what the model ordinance
All right, so,
requires.
so you're saying that it's an existing lot?
it's an existing
and You're
lot,
saying it's not an
27
existing
parking
lot?
and it is being restriped, and
For commercial use.
residential use, but I specifically asked
It is
that,
currently a parking lot for commercial use.
understood.
So it's a change in use to a residential use, requires site plan approval, which is the threshold in the
It's important to
statute.
them, we'll just do it.
And what would be the requirement for 35
They'd have to
spaces?
do,
Well, the calculation, if we're going by that argument, it's the net new spaces over existing. So it's 15% of 8, of which a third have to be in at CO. So we would be looking at, I think, 1 spot for EV.
And frankly, if it's something that's important to the board, it's important to the professionals, we'll just do it. It's not going to make or break it for the applicant. So we can just agree to comply either way.
which way?
We can, if it's important to the board, we'll just agree to comply.
I think that it should happen,
That's fine.
so let's go with 1 EV.
Sure.
If that's what the requirement, if that's what the requirement
It-
is.
What are you saying?
It's 1 at CO, and then 3 years thereafter requires another one, and then 3 years thereafter requires the final spot. It's a rollout over 6 years from CO.
But you're basing that on the difference between the existing and the proposed.
Correct. It's the net new spaces, because the existing spaces are exempt. There's no requirement to put EV in for existing spaces.
And I'm saying they aren't existing anymore if you're completely wiping the slate clean.
We will agree to comply with the code as it is interpreted by DCA, or at minimum, put in the 3 over the 6-year period.
As long as we have EV ready, we're probably fine. I mean, the more the better, but I
Like
think
3
regardless,
EV ready?
that would be fine. I mean, I think we want to comply with the legislation as best as possible. I think the more we get is better, but
Okay.
Donna's interpretation is most likely correct.
Okay. All right, so that would have to be something that we add, Mr. Bigman, to 3 EV ready.
I'm gonna let Mr. go.
Yeah, I don't want to get hung up on this point. We'll comply with Ms. Miller's interpretation of it, and we'll go forward with that as a condition.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right,
Are
So
the,
we're saying 5 and then according to the rollout.
Correct.
are the spaces in the parking lot going to be assigned?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the handicap spaces as well, I assume?
I don't know that those can be assigned principally because they serve a dual purpose, both for any handicapped residents and/or their guests or visitors. And we don't know who that might be, so
Okay.
that will be controlled by leasing. If we do have a handicapped resident, yes, they would be entitled for one of those spots, yes.
And the alley north of the site, what do you envision the use of that by the owner of the site?
None for this owner. It's used by the adjoining tenants, to my knowledge. The only possible use that this owner might have, and if it's a public right-of-way, would be for possibly move in or move out.
Okay, so you don't anticipate the applicant using that site except?
No, it has to be left free and clear for emergency access, and you can see from the exhibit that the buildings to our north rely on it in some capacity, but the operation of this building it's not dependent on it at all.
Can I ask about the curb cut on Lake Avenue?
Yes.
When we talked about it with the DRC, you said you weren't intending to replace the curb because you didn't want to go through a whole DEP process.
Correct.
Is that still, can you just tell the full board what that is?
Yeah, I could speak to that. So I think the thought was that we would, it would be easier if the city wanted to do that work, if the city did that work, but the applicant would make a contribution for that. That way we don't have to go and get an additional DEP permit for it, but we would agree to that as a condition of approval as well.
In other words, the applicant will agree to pay for it, but the city would do it.
Great.
Right.
Just so we don't run afoul of the flood hazard area permitting.
any other questions for this witness?
Sorry, I have one more.
Go ahead.
Donna, your report says that additional street trees are required on both sides of Bond Street. Does that fall under site plan? Yeah. Can you say more about that?
It's the requirement. The thing is, it may be more prudent to either get the contribution rather than put them in, or some combination. You know, it's a narrow sidewalk for a very busy access way. There's a lot of overhead. So it may be prudent to grant the waiver or get a contribution in lieu.
Any other questions from board members? Any questions from our professionals?
Hang on, I just, there's one thing I wanted to. That's gonna be architecture. That's architecture. So the ramp design, is it effectively working the same way it did before? Would you say effectively the same way it was designed before?
Yes.
Okay, but there have been some modifications to the.
I don't know if it's construction materials, but it has narrowed by 2 feet, so it allows it to still meet ADA barrier-free code, but it allows for greater depth of the parking spaces, but it still leaves a buffer in front of the parking spaces so that any disabled individuals still have appropriate clearance to get to the ramp.
Okay, and it's, I think we noted something about that. It looks like there's a little bit of curbing between the sidewalk, the walkway, and the access to the ramp. Wherever those shrubs line up along the
Oh, you're looking to the south of that? Yes, that was added in response to the critique at the last hearing, which was that was previously a wide open, call it a patio for lack of a better term. So it now provides some buffer and separation between the parking space and the sidewalk leading to the front of the building.
Right, but I think there's a curve that's creating, I don't know if it's a step condition, I guess. How do I describe this? Right at the, yeah, Mike, can you just walk over there and point out?
Right here, right?
Yeah. So is that supposed to be a step, or is that just,
I will have to defer to the architect. I don't know the grading of that in any detail.
okay.
The handicaps use the flush, call it alley, between the two spaces to then get to the ramp at grade. So if that,
So
If-
is there curbing in front of the handicap spaces?
no,
Separating them from the walkway?
there is
It's all
not.
flush, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I'm saying perhaps it needs to be flush where it connects to where the stairs come down.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll have Jason
don't-
speak to
So,
that. I'm
yeah,
not sure what that is. But either way, I think we agree, and we would agree to make that change. Maybe it's just they carried forward
Yeah, I
that
don't know
curb
if
line
it's-
on the plan, I'm not sure. But I think the intention is that it would be flush, so
Throughout.
we'll have Jason speak to it, but either way, we can make that change.
I had one minor thing. I just had one minor thing that I noticed in the report that you, I think, had said that the carpinus, that the horn beam was not an appropriate use, and
At the street tree or close to the building?
I think it
Oh, that
was.
was my last comment about that.
Because I just respectfully disagree. That's all. I think I think it could be a good
We
change.
had a lot of words between us about plants on this one. So I think one concern is, in one case, maybe too close to the building, but it's probably an okay species.
Yeah.
And then the other one I think is is a street tree or in the parking lot, and I think there's where might be a branching problem.
But isn't it a column there? I think they had.
Well, are there two? Who's gonna speak about landscaping?
I don't know if it was
Somebody else, or are you
this.
handling it?
No, I really shouldn't.
Okay.
We could have our Jason speak to that too.
All right, then we
What was the question? I'm sorry.
All right,
we can wait. We're talking about one.
we're talking about tree species.
a tree.
Oh.
We can have that discussion.
As far as tree species go, we'd happily defer to Ms. Miller.
Well,
If there's a conflict.
except our report, which was Michael's comment, not mine.
I was respectfully disagreeing with our report.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, we'll go with your recommendation. Whoever makes the best recommendation, we'll take it.
All right, you're okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
All right, so there's an agreement as to what the
was
species
Michael's
should
tree.
be.
We're just saying to keep the horn beams in
All
instead
right,
of the
horn
report
beams in.
says to take the horn beams
You
out.
got it.
All right,
I know this is-
okay. Anything else from our professionals or our board members? Any questions from the public? No questions from the public? Okay.
Oh, wait, no, so I'm sorry. So the retaining wall thing, are we deferring all the rest of the conversation about the retaining wall and the screening wall to the architect?
You'll have Mo talk about that.
Okay.
By the way, as we were, Don, as we were talking internally here, I think that step that you see on the plan is just a mistake on the plan. We'll just
Just a line.
we'll just have to fix that. I think they carried the.
Jason disagrees.
You think so?
Yeah. I think you
He's
need it
probably
because
scrutinized the
it's a
grading
relatively steep area,
Yeah.
and the handicap area needs to be flattened out, and that's how grade is being laid up.
Hmm.
But Gary's right, though, the barrier-free accessible path is from the access aisle between the two parking spaces, so the step really shouldn't cause an issue for ADA access.
Well, then I suppose we'll keep it. If we need it, we'll keep it.
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for your time.
Next, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making all those modifications for us that were suggested.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
We'll take Jason Hanrahan from Mode Architects. So let's walk through the, you have like the vendor elevations, or where do you want to start with?
I think we should just walk through the plans.
Walk through
with
the
the unit
plans?
count.
Okay, so Jason, why don't you get sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And if you could just state your name and spell your last for the record.
Sure, Jason Hanrahan, Hanrahan. I'm an owner of Mode Architects, 621 Lake Ave, here in Asbury Park. I am a graduate of Roger Williams University, 2002, with a degree in architecture. I have been an owner of Mode for the last 7 years while we were here in Asbury. I have been sworn as an expert witness in many boards across New Jersey, over a dozen. I've been in front of this board before, as well as most recently Seaside Heights, Oceanport, and Bradley Beach.
Good. And your licenses are current?
I am not licensed.
So Jason, we're going to ask that he be qualified as a project designer. He's not a licensed architect, but just he's familiar with the plans, obviously. Jason, you can speak a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so again, I've been working in the field of architecture, obviously, since 2002, and I'm a partner at Mode Architects. And again, I have been involved in this project and numerous others at a high-end level over the last decade.
I would move to accept his credentials. This is a very typical arrangement where a partner in a firm may not be licensed. The liability is accepted by the managing partner who is licensed.
And I appreciate that because Dan Conditor, who I think the board probably is familiar with, is stuck on a plane somewhere in between Florida and Newark right now. So Jason's filling in and he's going to do a good job for us.
Yes.
Who knows? He hasn't landed yet as far as I know.
He has not.
Okay, so Jason, why don't you take them through, we're going to walk through the...
We haven't decided.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. So Jason, why don't you take them through the floor plans and just give a brief overview of what the building's going to look like and operate like?
Sure. So obviously everybody knows the existing VFW building. It has a ground level basement, which is in a flood zone, so that's going to be strictly used as storage. No living space will be happening in there. Moving up through the building, we have 9 units on the first level. The 2 to the south are independently accessed, and they are 2-story units. Moving up to the second level, existing VFW building will have 7 units. Again, because those units to the south are internal 2-story units accessed from the outside. And then that leads me to the top level, which is a new addition to the VFW building, and it has 8 units. And again, these are all independently accessed from that top floor. So that's how the existing building is structured. Moving towards the roof, we'll have our elevator will kind of pop through the roof. We'll have some screening, and then we have some mechanical space on that roof level, which will be screened per the request of the DRC. Moving on to the exterior, again, I think maybe we'll touch on the screen wall on the parking lot, because that came up the last witness. So A201. So you'll see the detail we have here that we created. And again, there's a certain requirement for the height that we're going to need above the pavement level. So we are bringing the retaining wall up 4 feet higher than where it is now, based off of the average grade over there. And then we're adding an additional 3'6" to the top of that with this aluminum screen system, decorative aluminum. So this will kind of give the aesthetic of that pedestrian walkway there without being overpowering with the retaining wall, but we are complying to the height requirement.
No. I mean, what's the overall height?
We are at 7'6" from the top of the existing wall system that's there now, which
Okay,
varies
so
along that street.
How does that comply?
What is
Height of walls is 6 feet.
Sorry, say that again, excuse me?
Maximum height of walls is 6 feet. So you're over that by just what you're adding. You're over by 1 foot, plus whatever the existing wall height is. Right, so it's 1.5 feet more than 6, plus the 2 or whatever the existing wall is.
Oh, wait a minute, are we saying that we're adding to the wall there?
A 4-foot
Yeah.
wall on top of the existing wall.
Oh, or is,
The existing walls elevated at the sidewalk, not the parking level.
right, so does that count, that it's from the sidewalk versus?
Is it above the
Yeah, so you
average
count the
grade?
entire vertical,
So that can't be more than 6?
explain to me how it's working? You're putting it on top of the existing retaining wall.
So yes, the existing wall that's there abutting the parking lot now, the parking lot's elevated in that location.
Yeah.
So that system that you see where it says barriers and there's a line that's existing, and that 4 feet of the wall system is above that with the 3 foot
So
6
like
screen.
rebar something into
Yeah.
the wall and go.
Yeah,
stick it
yeah,
right on
we're-
top,
and we'll-
stack, stack, stack.
Yeah, and we'll extend the
Yeah.
brick on the facade.
Yes, you measure from the lowest point to the top.
Right, so that can't be more than 6?
Correct.
Okay.
But does the fence count as part of the wall?
Yes.
All right, so it can't be more than 6.
Okay.
And today, it looks, I mean, what you're proposing is 7 plus what
Sure,
exists.
we'll bring it down to
So it's
comply.
gotta
Well,
be-
Yeah, we could just bring it down to comply. If
Yeah.
that's the best thing.
Yeah.
And then, and it's gonna run the entire length of Lake Avenue or how?
That'll run the entire length of Lake Avenue.
Okay.
But at some point,
And tie in at the existing building, or are you gonna dye it at the planting corner, or how's that gonna work?
Pull up the rendering again.
So the retaining wall is gonna turn the corner and die at that corner right there. It's not gonna continue on.
Right, so it goes to the driveway.
Correct.
I mean, to the drive aisle.
So that exit right there.
Right.
Okay, what about the other end?
Well, it's a,
As it should.
Yeah, and it
There's a
should go all the
Yeah,
way to
that'll
the
tie
end
into
of
the
the property.
building right there. It'll run the whole street to the end of the
Yeah.
parking lot.
That's not the building though, that's like their seating area.
right, it would have to go.
Do we have?
well, we could,
Do we have a rendering of that?
Yeah, it should go all the way to the end, to the end.
Yeah, but should it come back and meet the building, or should
Right
it
at
go
the-
right to the end and stop? That's the question, because right at the end there, they have a little tiny wall of their own.
So,
yeah, so you could, here, it's pause on this one. So this one, you can see the Bond Avenue
For
side.
where it turns onto Bond.
Correct.
Right.
And it sounds like from the board's questions, we should do the same thing on the other side of the parking lot,
Right.
basically wrap around the corner. Yeah, we can do that.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll turn it.
And the last rendering shows that. The last slide.
Is it?
Here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that this, oh,
So
but this
that
doesn't,
terminates,
Yes.
I see where
that
that,
doesn't terminate
At the building, it terminates at the green
building.
space.
It terminates at part of the
It
parking
cuts
lot.
off the green space.
Right. So that should go all the way to the end.
So it should wrap around the green space.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
it's an emergency pedestrian.
This way you get to see the green space.
That way, if you get chased in.
The walls
I
are
think
high.
it probably should, right? I know, I think that turning it, but leaving.
So I think
like,
part of the
width
problem
it.
too is because of the grade transition from the
Yeah.
sidewalk level, because it used to be a driveway and they're not gonna fill the driveway now because of the flood hazard restriction. So that's gonna pond water if we wrap it.
Right, it'll be a top.
So it does need to come up the way this is shown.
So, and Eric actually brought up another good
I think
point.
from a safety
From a
standpoint,
safety and
you want
security.
to be able to leave the parking lot if you are in it, but can't head out the other
I
side.
mean, as a
As a
pedestrian.
pedestrian.
As a
yes.
pedestrian. So then it stays.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
So my
That needs to
question,
be depicted on the site plan.
yeah,
Okay.
so my question is, am I correct that at the eastern edge, so this area we're seeing here, the wall will be, the wall you're adding on top is lower, right? But you're gonna be maintaining the same height, so
It's gonna maintain an even level across the entire street, so visually, you're not gonna see
and
anything
its
on an angle.
maximum height above grade at the corner will be 6 feet. Is that what we have?
Yes, I believe that's where we have
That's the
kind of.
So
requirement.
wall
Yeah,
height
no, I
will
want,
decrease as it
what I
comes
don't
into
want
the
to end up
site,
with is
and
this.
then the screening fence will.
You should really be able to, I don't think the wall should ever be higher than like waist height so that you can see in. It's, a big brick wall is not
Yeah.
what you want to be walking next to at eye height or even that high. So I feel like,
But how
But
tall is the
isn't the
wall now?
wall at grade level, not,
I mean, the wall, the wall now
this
is,
is like,
It's only a
It's
couple
probably
feet.
2.5 to 3 feet.
and this is.
Okay.
no, so
Right, but we're, so
what
the-
they're saying is
so
that
the
the
crust
existing
purposes,
wall
do you
ends
want the
like
wall to be
here,
extended higher so you
and
don't
then
have headlights?
add this
coming
and
through?
then add that.
Okay.
Or do you want it to be the screening fence to be the thing that.
It looks like, because we've got to have a Google Earth piece put up.
Sure.
That looks like it's about 2 or 3 feet
Yeah.
today.
And so my supposition is that you just add the decorative fence on top of the
For 3
existing
feet above
wall.
that.
Right.
Well, one
Up
of
to a
the things
maximum
that-
height of 6 feet,
Right,
wherever that difference is between
but
that
one
and
of the
sidewalk.
things that we had mentioned before was that we didn't want the lights
Yeah, so you
to be
could
coming
do
through onto Lake Ave.
the
Yeah.
lower part of the fence could be a solid panel.
Right, the low,
Yes.
right,
And
Yes.
upper part can be
right,
Yeah.
because we don't want the lights coming through.
That's fine,
Right.
so we can do
So-
that.
Is the wall, are the wall and the fence protected from the vehicles? I'm
Those
guessing
need
that's why
wheels.
the
Oh, there's gonna
walls
be,
set up in the first
what do you call
Wall
those?
and the
Stops.
Those curb
The stops,
There's curb,
Stops.
yeah, so they can't just,
Itself?
The curb
Well,
stops?
yeah, we'll have curb stops.
Curb-
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim
My
Jim
point is
Kennedy's not here, so we
Let's
can
not
agree
add
on
too
curb
much
stops.
mass to the top of the
No,
existing
agreed.
wall. Let's
No,
keep
agreed.
it as light as possible.
That's fair, that's fair. There was also, I
So wait, I
saw,
just wanna
Yeah, let's-
clarify.
let's
So
make sure we know.
perhaps is for,
The anything added to the top of the existing wall to be part of the same metal system. Like
even though
But you want it to be a
possibly the
solid
bottom might have to be solid so
they'll
that
have to
the
design
the lights,
The headlights are
the
not
headlights
coming.
don't come through.
Right.
But then you have some,
So like the
Okay.
first 2 or
What's the
3.
concern about headlights? Because if you're
Going
walking on
into-
the sidewalk, cars parking on Lake Avenue have headlights. So what's the difference if there's headlights? from
they're in your, they're high, it's higher.
They're right here.
They're at eye level.
Yes.
That's the difference.
That's why I'm trying to visualize how this combination wall screening panel is gonna work. Like, I'd almost rather the wall be a little higher, but I don't know,
It kind of comes down to where you measure that 6 foot from, because if you use 6 foot from the sidewalk side, it's gonna be kind of low, but if you use 6 feet from the
Right.
parking lot side, it's gonna be higher, so it's, yeah.
Well, it sounds as though that the rule is from the sidewalk.
From the sidewalk, if it
If
is.
that's what the rule is, then it's
yeah,
what it
that's
is.
what the rule is, but I mean, we may say that this site has unique
We can.
circumstances where the parking is higher and the benefit is that you screen the headlights by having a higher wall.
I mean, I kind of like that idea personally.
I do too.
I mean, can you pin to the other, the Bond Street view of the wall?
But I
I mean, 10
agree.
feet is a lot.
No, that's too much.
No, that's too much.
That's relatively, you just
So,
see the
you know, I
pedestrian
think we
here.
meet in the middle
There's
somewhere.
some fence that you, something that you top.
Because at the
Yeah.
same time, you know, Jason, I think, was alluding to the point that on the inside, you know, you don't want the cars to, you know, wheel stops are great, but we also don't want them careening over the wall.
Sure.
But they don't now. And we're gonna have plowing, so we don't want snow piling up against the screen panel.
Well, that would be.
I don't know, it sounds as though we're in agreement that we're fine with a certain amount of feet that we're gonna go above what we have. It will be a variance,
Yeah.
but perhaps can the brick wall go as high as a normal headlight would go? And then you have the decorative on top of that.
Or maybe only do it 2
So what do you?
Yeah, so I would.
It's 2 feet from the
Yeah, I think if we
existing
did went 2 feet higher than what's existing, kept the screen wall on top of that, I think that the mass is much lower, you know, from it's,
Right, we don't,
I think it'll block the lights from the car if it's 2 feet higher, and I think, you know, that'll diffuse
you
the
know
headlights,
what our
keep it safe.
concept is, that we're.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be 2 feet above the existing grade of the parking lot, plus the screening.
Plus the screen.
Yeah.
So that would be the
You want to say
request.
6 feet from the height of the parking lot? Does that make sense?
6,
But we're saying we want to
No, I think it would be the parking.
So we want to say 6 feet from the height of the parking lot, so they can do 2 feet, and then this fence is 3.7 or something.
What is the objection to?
Do we know
just
what
doing
the
this?
existing height of the parking lot is compared to the sidewalk, ma'am?
What's that the same?
Or the existing height of the wall, really.
Conditions plan right now.
It doesn't have a wall.
No, the existing height of the wall would be more
Well,
helpful.
yeah, because you're filling in where the driveway is.
Choose the existing condition. It's about 2 feet, and then we'll go 2 feet on top of that, with the screen wall, the screen on top of that,
How tall is the screen? 3 feet.
3'6". And we need to protect people from coming off the edge, that's really why the screen's there, so.
Should the existing walls go to
I mean,
That's the elevation.
2 feet and then.
Instead of the deck,
That's
it's
what that's what they're doing.
2 foot above the
2 feet and then do 18 wall.
And then you have the street.
It says, if you look at that diagram.
18 inches, we need 42 inches, so we gotta come up.
Well, it's saying extended. Extend.
You
They're
want
saying they're extending.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
they're saying that this is the existing wall.
Right.
Slide.
Chairman, would you permit us to take a 2-minute break so we can figure out what we're going to do with this, and then we'll
Okay.
just come back? We're just going to talk about it with the professionals for a second.
Why don't you guys talk about it, because you know what conceptually what we're looking for. So,
Yeah,
and I think that we've discussed it to kind of say that a variance is probably okay, but we just have to make it to be what we need it to be,
sure.
so that
Yeah,
it.
looks like the wall's about 2.5.
I feel like we could just stick some metal
Wall.
fence
Here's,
system on top
somebody
of
just
the
handed me the
existing
existing
wall.
conditions.
Yeah.
Is this it?
I have the.
So anyway, the
We need
existing
to
wall
be
is about
making
2
big,
feet.
heavy walls
Right,
on
so strictly 2
streets.
feet above that wall and 18
No,
feet.
it's too, the fence.
You
Well, then
42.
you'd be compliant, basically.
It doesn't need.
Probably,
Well,
depending
it's
on the
higher on one end than at the other,
Right,
it might be
yeah,
over
yeah.
by inches.
You're not making a
That's not-
fortress.
When you walk down Lake, that's not that high, and if you.
Correct.
If you put
But
2
it's
feet
18
over it, it's still not that high.
How much did you say?
No, and all I'm saying is that you would
I
start your
guess we'd do
fence
2
right on
feet
top
and
of
2
this,
foot.
straight up.
So
whatever
6 foot
height.
total. It's about.
I mean, you
2
have to
feet
still
for
be
open
clear.
space.
Adding 4 feet.
Yeah.
Why you want more
Just
fence?
whatever it is.
You want
in the
more
wall,
wall,
she
less
wants
She wants more, a little bit more wall.
And we need the 42.
And so we'd ask for a variance
I guess
for,
what?
up
Headlights
to
block.
6.5 feet, just to account for.
Something
Right, we're
that-
saying that the lowest part of the fence could be a solid panel doing what you're asking, blocking
2
that.
feet, 2 feet of brick
Yeah.
and then.
But you don't have to put masonry on top of masonry and then a fence. It's just fence on top of masonry.
3 feet.
I've been very low key on car stuff lately, but my.
What have we had?
All right, so where are we going? Because we have,
What do you think?
I should
do it.
So I think we're talking.
We'll agree to
Seven
go
and a
there,
half
we'll
to
mark it
8
up on
feet.
site and invite the board out.
Donna, can we just ask, like, why do we need, why does it have to be a brick? Why can't we just use the fence on top of it? And why do we have to build
We didn't
more
do
wall,
whatever they
period?
Mark it up when you 42
Instead of
inches
just having the
minimum
fence, the fence would block headlights.
We don't, we can do whatever you guys want, we just,
I don't know if there's another reason.
I am certain.
I think that, again, it's how big you want the headlight.
I'm certain they could design a topping fence that has some, if they can design this pattern.
I mean, if you guys like that,
Yeah, it could be.
this is nice.
Yeah, it's nice, but,
Then that,
but all we're saying is that there'd be a lower piece of this.
so,
The fence just comes lower and has a more solid expression.
I like that.
Okay. Okay.
yeah, but that's what start would be like down here.
Yeah.
Got it.
hard to explain in the resolution.
Yeah, that's fine. That's up to him. Okay, we can come back on the record.
No, we would just
No,
need to
here's-
specify a certain distance above
So we're back.
the existing, that the fence has a certain percentage solid.
I actually prefer brick wall to that solid.
Okay.
See, some people
So we have-
prefer,
Wait, we
From
got
the map,
Are we
we
back
figured
on?
it.
Cool.
Yeah,
we are,
we weren't really gone.
Okay,
we weren't really gone.
we're back on.
So from the map, it sounds like the existing wall averages 2.5 feet high. And if they add 2.5 feet, that'll be 5 feet. But we'd get pretty good coverage on headlights, if not quite all the way coverage on headlights. And then if you put a 2-foot panel, you're at 7 feet. If you do a 3-foot panel, you're at 8 feet.
Oh, why do we need it that high?
That's
Like,
what-
why does it?
So we're, on this side, we're trying to obscure the headlights entirely.
Right.
If the board does not feel that's as 100% a priority, then yeah, lower the height. Just go with the panel.
Well, no, but that's what we're considering. I know.
We just explained the math of, effectively, you'd need a 5-foot high brick wall to be 100% opaque on headlights.
No,
Then you put something.
but it doesn't have to be a brick wall.
But if you guys don't feel that that's necessary.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessary that it has to be a brick wall.
Overkill.
I think that some of us are thinking that it's 2.5 feet of whatever it is today, 2.5 feet that just blocks a fence of
So-
some sort, that it blocks the light, an opaque, and then you have the top, your decorative
So a
top.
brick finish on the existing wall with a
That's
cap,
right.
throw a fence screening panel on.
That's right.
Yeah, and
And
then
then up.
the top part can be filigree.
So then that's 5, 6, 7, 8, that's probably about a 7-foot fence. or 7.
I think it'll end up looking a little lighter.
Yeah, no, it will look lighter,
So-
but I'm saying that probably brings it to about 7 feet. Because it's 2.5 feet existing, 2.5 feet to block the lights, so that's 5. And then it's a matter of how much higher do you want to go? Like that?
Yeah, no, I,
Like that, the 3.6 that we have there, or 3 feet?
So that's
I don't understand what the extra 3.5 feet of decorative fence is doing.
It's decorative.
It's decorative.
It's decorative, as opposed to opaque.
and I'm just saying, move the decorative part down a little. You know, I'm
But
not
can
gonna
you?
tell, yeah, you know.
But can you?
Well,
Because then it's not opaque.
But you make the
But he's
lowest
saying
part of
it's-
the fence.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be 100% opaque. And it might be 80% opaque.
Or 90, or
So-
whatever, yeah.
Well, make a proposal.
But it's
Well,
not a
let
brick
me
wall.
make a proposal and see if
Go
we
ahead.
can, let's try to get off this point. So what if we agreed that we need a variance for a fence up to 7 feet in height, right? To provide, to provide, enough coverage or whatever. So what we would do is, we would obviously revise this detail, and as a condition of approval, we would submit it to Donna Miller and to Jason for their review. We could even mock it up on site and have them visit and look at the site so that everybody is on the same page. They'd obviously want to get concurrence from the board to make sure that the board's satisfied with it, and then we'd go from there. But we'd want to like mock something up while we're out at the site and show everybody.
Well, I think that that's going to depend on how we do today.
But we aren't a construction, we don't normally look at mock-ups.
No, we.
Well, let's see how far we
Let's see how
get.
far we go today.
Yes.
And we could have that discussion.
Fair enough. You got
All
it.
right.
But I think that's the idea. So
Okay.
we would request a variance up to 7 feet in height. Final
Okay.
design to be determined.
Yeah, I'm just gonna just say it out loud again, I would not wanna see a solid brick thing over 5 feet.
We're not, that is not the intention,
Understood.
unless Michael Volk's really
Um,
against it.
Barely anybody sitting up here is over 5 feet.
Hey, okay.
Myself
Touch on the
included.
What else? Yes.
Yeah, so let's go real quick while we have Jason still. We'll touch on the elevations, which we did go through at the last hearing in some detail with our historic preservation expert. But Jason, why don't you talk them through each one of these elevations up here on the screen?
Yeah, hold it right there. So, based off of the conversation from the last meeting, we then sat with the DRC to kind of go over some of the finer details of the exterior. Just, moving quickly through the exterior, the main BFW portion is going to be repaired. It's going to maintain its existing look, and we are going to add the separate box on top that's going to have a different design look of the main portion. And as our historic professional testified to last time, we're going to go with a darker colored clapboard siding on the exterior of the upper portion. We have all new black windows that are going in this building. The railing and entry, we talked about how we have to move that out further to kind of accommodate some of the ramp and the access issues, but it's going to maintain the existing look. We are going to maintain and mimic the size and scale of the existing entry, but we're going to make it conform by pulling in the railings and adding the proper, obviously, the height clearances with the stairs that are there. And we talked about the ramp issue before. I think we cleared up the fact that we will need that step due to some grading issues. And the ramp has been tightened, but it still meets the code for ADA accessibility to get us up and into the building accurately. So we do have our decorative lighting on the X side. We have our sign that's indicated in our elevations that will be on the corner there, the armory. And again, the existing building will have the new black windows. We have black windows that were going in the upper level as well. And again, the upper portion kind of minimizes the impact to maintain the integrity of the existing building. Let's see, okay, I think that could be it at the moment. I think we touched upon a lot of things. I think a lot of this has been reviewed by the DRC, and we're kind of reiterating that with these renderings.
Sure. Don, I know you had a number of architectural questions, comments in your review letter. Do you want to hit those first, or if there's questions from the board?
Are there any that you're not going to comply with? You said you were going to comply with
I
all
don't think so, right?
letter conditions, right?
Yes.
I think we're clear on all of that.
The only thing which I hadn't mentioned before, and I don't know, I probably shouldn't say anything wrong. The railing on the ramp I mean, you changed from, having the brick walls to now it's an open railing. And I just feel like it's not that great as far as tying in with the,
So there's a couple aspects to that.
I mean, I get that,
Yeah.
ADA has, grip requirements and spacing and things like that, and I just don't know if it's worth.
The style of the railing, even that I think originally we had some brick and some curbing there.
Yeah, but
This
it was
allows us
hidden
to
on the inside,
minimize,
it was
this
the-
allows us to minimize the ramp to get that
Yeah.
space to the handicap parking spaces that are on the exterior. So that kind of drives the bus on that
I don't know,
scale,
but
just for your
as far
reference.
as like the actual style of the railing, if it weren't so contemporary looking,
Okay.
I'm not sure how to explain what should be different about it.
I
I don't want it to be, pickets, I don't want it to be, I know how much it hurts to get your knuckles bruised on one of those things when you're coming down in a chair.
Donna, please use the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Thank you.
So I was just talking about the style of the railing on the accessible ramp. It's kind of in the contemporary modern style, and I was just curious if there was an alternative that would be still compliant for all of the, accessibility requirements, but just maybe lean a little bit more toward the sort of historic decoration.
We're open to kind of modifying that railing to as long as the railing fits our ADA accessibility codes.
Exactly.
We're wide open to kind of adjusting that to not be so contemporary and fit a little more with the kind of black iron look of this
Yeah,
project.
and again, I don't want pickets, I don't want it to be heavy, I don't want it to be
Yeah.
obtrusive, I just,
Do something that really
square
would fit.
tube, I don't know.
It's cables now. Yeah.
Is it cables?
Yeah.
It's hard to see.
Yeah, that's hard to see that's cables.
And maybe it's the rendering that we can, help you with a view of that. But it's a cable railing.
No, until you just mentioned cables, I was fine with the way it was,
I
but
thought it
now
was
that I
just
can see
open.
it's cables,
I was like,
I agree, that's
it's one more
cables, that's
rail,
too
but-
contemporary for this structure.
Okay.
I agree.
So I think I'll have one of our guys work up some sample images from our historic preservation guys.
Are there any other questions?
I'm just want to look again at my report real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Jason, so the step down, it's actually down, right, from the handicap to that walkway?
Yes.
Does it make sense to have a step down in the walkway from Bond to the stairs as opposed to that location? Is that possible to do?
Yeah, we need to maintain that level for the ADA accessibility on that. Basically, we're creating a platform where the ramp kind of spills out and the parking, those handicap parking spaces enter. That's it.
Go back to the rendering.
But it's definitely a step down, right? Because the slope goes towards lake.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
It's
see it on the
not- it's not-
rendering, but you
yes.
do see it on the site plan.
Yeah, it's hard to represent that in the rendering, you're right.
Yeah.
But for clarity, yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Okay, are we back to me now?
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit more about, on the roof, how the elevator bulkhead, how much that's going to stick up? Will we really see it from either street?
So from these renderings, you can see, I think we have a couple shots from the corner here. The distance from the street, from a pedestrian's eyesight to the center of that roof where the elevator is, really very limited. You're not going to have the eyesight to get to the top of the bulkhead of that elevator from the street. From a little further distance down the road, you might have a glimpse of it, but in the adjacent area, you shouldn't be able to see it.
Okay. And then just, we've got the armory sign. No other signage, no
That's
signage
it.
in the landscaping or?
That is it.
I'm gonna start asking that question more and more because I hate when it comes up later. Like, oh, we added a sign. Streetscape improvements, we had talked about maybe some benches or bike racks or anything? And get
Bike racks are inside.
Yeah, the bike storage and bike racks, they're inside the storage area of the building. We don't have any exterior bike racks on the property here. I think some of the site constraints don't allow us to have that.
No, these are public improvements, like.
Outside of the building, on the street.
Yeah.
Streetscape.
When you're doing the streetscape, we generally ask for bike racks and,
Or a bench and.
Yeah,
benches.
any of the above are fine. Bike racks, bench, that's okay.
so then on that side on Lake, south side of Lake,
Want some stuff on.
there should be room there to put a couple of bike racks, the loops,
Okay.
the typical city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lot of
loops.
So I had one bike rack and one bike rack and bench.
This is, actually this goes into the alley. It's deceiving. This goes right into the alley.
Okay.
So it would be on the.
You said there's bike racks in the storage area in the lower level?
Yeah. Okay, we'll accommodate that for them.
One more question about that. Where are the mailboxes?
Yeah, so. I think we need to kind of identify the mailbox a little better. They're gonna be in this corridor on the entry, but we don't have them identified right now, but they'll be in the corridor when you walk in.
And I'm sorry, did we talk about this the first meeting? Where's the utility meters or any transformers? I don't think we got to it
I
first
don't think we
time.
touched on them, but they're gonna
We
be.
haven't gotten to the engineering yet.
Yeah, I don't think we touched on them. We have some locations for them in that front corner of the building, kind of adjacent to that ramp into the storage area. And that would be where they would sit.
Where?
So they would be right, kind of in that area right there.
No. Facing Lake Avenue? Facing Lake Avenue.
Well, we'd have to use some landscaping to screen them, but that would be the location.
Where?
And the meters are back there.
I'm sorry, move the hand again. Where's electric and where's gas?
So we'll put our meters back here in that
So,
along
in the
in that alleyway.
In the alleyway.
Yeah.
All right, we need that depicted.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have about a foot between the property line and the building
Yes.
edge before you get into the alley, but, one of the concerns is on the other side of the alley, one of the newer buildings, 722, they have a whole bank of meters. In fact, they're in my report, and they're protected by bollards, but they had about 5 feet between the back of their building
Yeah.
and where the alley edge is.
Well, isn't the utility gonna determine where it goes?
Well, yeah, but do we want them on the front of the building on Lake Avenue? Okay.
No, we don't.
Flush down in the alleyway of the building.
Right.
We have a foot of clearance there.
And then wouldn't they also have to be, where's the flood hazard line? Would they have to be elevated? if
Well,
they're
that
on
back
the
area is elevated.
But I'm sure that's also in.
By the driveway?
in Insights report.
Yeah, that
Yeah, that
back area is elevated.
Correct.
They should be higher, right.
Yeah, that's out of the flood elevation.
But they can't be near an opening. If it's a gas meter, it has to be 8 feet from an opening. And then what about an electrical transformer? Or a generator? Are those things being considered?
Or is someone else going to be testifying about that?
We're gonna have to locate, if necessary, we're gonna have to locate it adjacent to that ramp in that front. That's the, in my opinion, least obtrusive location for something like that versus the corner of Lake and Bond.
But you also have to see if there's enough room to have it there. So we have to make sure, I don't know if that's in your report, Jason, about where the where all this is gonna, where this is gonna land, because if it's not on the plans, that's a problem.
Donna's report.
Yeah, but this is for the
The
other
other building,
building.
yeah,
Right.
but she did show this.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're gonna need to know where the utilities are going to be. Where the mailboxes are going to be. All right, and we don't know if there are any transformers?
We don't have the requirement for that at this moment.
There will be, right?
Yeah.
There will be. There will be. We're just not, we haven't depicted them on the plan.
With JCP&L?
Correct.
And then, is there not gonna be a generator, standby generator at all?
No generator.
Okay. So I'm just gonna offer that if there's a transformer or any metering in that notched area between the garage door and the inside corner,
Then
that's above the flood hazard line, we might suggest a screening wall like we
Yes.
did on
Absolutely.
900.
Anywhere that any of these utilities are going to be, they have to be screened.
Yeah, we can comply with that.
Anything else for this witness?
And you said you're gonna comply with all the landscape
Correct.
notes and recommendations? I'm sorry, we're gonna comply
Correct.
with all the
Oh,
landscape notes
correct,
and recommendations?
yes.
Thank you, Steve. Oh, and the lights. You're gonna do the street lighting we had recommended. In fact, I had sent an example to Mode
Correct.
Yes.
for the site lighting.
Was that, Donna, that was your comment on 1.2B?
6. Oh, yes, 1 point.
Okay, so we're going to agree to comply with that. Good. Anything further for this witness?
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
In the initial hearing back in April, I believe there was testimony saying that the windows are being replaced in kind to what the original windows were. Correct? Okay, well, I understood that the windows, the original windows were white. These are black. And the windows in your new addition don't match the old.
In the addition portion on the rooftop, is that what the new third floor?
Yes.
So yeah, they're gonna be distinctly different than the existing building as not to kind of compete with the historic aspect of the VFW. So that's and I think a lot of that information was kind of given from the historic professional that was here speaking to that. But that was the direction that was her directive from her historic experience. And then obviously we reviewed this with the design review committee to kind of dial it in into the size and scale and location of that. And that's where we came to this kind of agreement.
Let's just leave that a second. We'll come back to that in a minute. This building is very historic and very important to Asbury Park. Would you consider putting a plaque of some type, maybe a picture of the original building with a 2 or 3 sentence explanation of the significance of that particular building, and potentially put it near the Lake Avenue entrance? You have some blank walls. Could be something maybe 2 by 4, 3 by 5, something. Doesn't have to be very big or intrusive.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah, we would certainly do that. I think this applicant in particular would ordinarily do something like that anyway, so happy to take that recommendation.
I don't know what the rest of the board would think about that, but I'd like to make that suggestion. Now, having made that suggestion, I'd like to come back to the issue of the windows. You depict them here in your renderings as being black. The original ones were white, as I understand them. What are they going to be?
The windows are going to be black.
That's not in conformance with the requirements. As I understand, you were going to replace the windows with windows that were originally there.
The windows, the design intent is to keep the view. It's
Right? It's like the panels.
Yeah, well, the original, the previous windows that were there have white frames. These are going to have a black frame. I think it's our intent is to create an accent to the history of the building, and and then we also want to.
You're doing just the opposite.
So during the DRC meeting, there was a conversation about integrating the new with the old, rather than having the distinct separation, of the new from the old.
You're certainly doing that with the color.
Well, so when they had the white windows proposed in their renderings last time with the dark bronze, I think it was on the addition for the first renderings we got, it was a very stark difference. It felt off balance. Remember, and so they modified the roof line. They changed the size and spacing of the windows in the addition. And then they came back to DRC and they said, we think it ties in better if we make all the windows the same color, even though they're not exactly the same size and rhythm. Like originally they had transom windows up on the addition. Mm-hmm. So now they've got rid of those transoms. Now they're all double hungs or whatever and have the same sort of light pattern. So again, this unifying design concept, even though it's not historically accurate, it makes the building more unified.
Well, just real quick on that point, I want to bring up Paul Milstein, if I could, who can speak to the window choice. Paul is the Director of Development for the applicant. Probably could be qualified as a.
He'd have to be sworn in.
He's going to have to be sworn in, but he wants to explain the windows.
And then we have to go again around all questions, so.
Okay.
That's testimony.
Before we do
closer.
that, let's finish the testimony from
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Sure.
We could say that testimony is separate,
That's fine.
because it just confuses.
That's what happened at the DRC meeting. We did meet, we had the architect, we had our architectural representative present.
Okay.
There was a conversation about, we know the Secretary of the Interior's standards. We want you to have that addition to be distinct. It should look different. It should be, if it were removed, it would have no impact on the building. That's kind of like the threshold thing. Like, it'd be no big deal if the addition went away. The historic architecture of the building and how it feels would be the same. And yes, this does that. So, but we said it was a little too disjointed having two different colors of windows.
Right.
And so the windows can always go back to being white if the addition were to be removed. It was kind of like the logic. So it didn't hurt to have the addition and the original building unified through the color of the window frames, was the argument we made. And
I think in adaptive reuse projects, we want it to feel like it's all one thing,
right,
and not two, but distinctly different at the same time.
Well, it surely is. Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions for this witness? Okay, anybody from the public have any questions for this witness? Okay, all right, that'll be that. Okay, we're coming at the end of the hour of the presentation, so that we'll have to get you another date to come back. But during that time, you will be making modifications so that we have, depiction of the new wall. You'll have the alternative for the railing that we're going to have, where the mailboxes are going to be, where the utility is going to be, where the bike racks are going to be. And we already have we're going to comply with the streetlights,
Yeah.
so we don't have to have that on the plans, Donna? The streetlights?
Well, what do you think we're talking about in terms of a new date, just to know how much time we
It'll
have?
be,
We have a date.
August,
No, we have a date. We have a date.
what's that date?
We set up 2 dates at our last hearing in case we had to spill over.
August 7th is the date.
Oh, okay, got it.
Whoever is
Thank
absent.
you.
So it goes.
Okay, so I mean, ideally what we would do is go through the insight and the CCH letters and just
Right,
make
and you
all
make
of
your
those.
modifications to everything.
We'll make all those, plus what we talked about tonight.
Right.
And submit those, in advance of that hearing, come back and hopefully finish up.
Yep, and depict which ones are going to be EV. So we have a date as to, what, August?
August 7th.
August 7th? Okay.
Steve, when you're doing the wall depiction, show both sides.
Okay.
That's fair. Okay. All right, I'd like to, can I get a motion to carry this application to August 7th? And without further notice?
So moved.
Good.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
James.
All right, August 7th.
James Bonanno.
Yes.
Councilwoman Clayton.
Yes.
Eric Gallipo.
Yes.
Jim Henry.
Yes.
Jennifer Souter.
Yes.
Michael Goonan.
Yes.
And Chairwoman Barbara Kurzak.
Yes.
Thank you.
What are you gonna do? Thank you, appreciate your time.
All right, we get 5 minutes. 5-minute break, please. Can I get a motion to
So we also
give a 5-minute break?
Max and that.
Okay.
James Bonanno.
Here.
Councilwoman Clayton.
Anybody else is doing
Here.
Here. Taking roll call. Here.
We're taking roll call.
Yes.
She's here.
Eric Gallipo.
Yes.
Jim Henry.
Here.
Jennifer Souter.
Here.
Michael Goonan.
Here.
Chairwoman Barbara Kurzak.
Here. All right, the next item that we have up is Shared Equities, Monroe Avenue Real.
Shared Equities Company LLC.
Shared Equities Company, yes. Okay.
If I may, Andrew Karras, on behalf of the applicant, Shared Equities Company LLC. If I may just briefly go over the nature of the project. Property that we're talking about tonight is 1012 Asbury Avenue, Block 501, Lots 1 and 2. Before I do that, you want to talk about the notice?
Sure. I had no issue with the notice, so the board has jurisdiction.
If you have no issue, we have no issue.
No issue.
I have no issue.
Okay.
Again, the property is at 1012 Asbury Ave, Block 501, Lots 1 and 2. It's the lots that are right on Asbury Avenue between Langford and Comstock. It's in the recently enacted 1012 Asbury Avenue redevelopment area. A plan was recently enacted by the Mayor and Council. Obviously, that came before this board beforehand for a recommendation that had been fully enacted thereafter. Now we are under the jurisdiction of that redevelopment plan. We're here tonight for preliminary and final site plan approval. What's significant about this application, there are no variances that are being requested, nor any design waivers. The site itself is just over 52,000 square feet. The existing use on the site is an auto repair shop and also a vacant lot. What is being proposed is somewhat unique for Asbury Park in that it will include 55% affordable housing, which is obviously very important for the city and very important for the community. The building that is being proposed is a 4-story building plus a penthouse level. I'll have ground floor retail on there that will serve retail and community facility space, around 8,300 square feet. With that being said, I have 3 witnesses I'll be calling in support of this application. We'll be starting with our engineer, Daphne Galvin.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could just state your name and spell your last for the record, please.
Sure, Daphne Galvin, Galvin.
If I may?
Yeah.
Can you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Sure, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Lafayette College. I have a graduate certificate in Project Management from NJIT. I obtained my New Jersey Professional Engineering license in 1989. I have almost 40 years of experience in every aspect of land development, from site feasibility and due diligence through design, permitting, and construction on commercial, industrial, and residential projects for private and public clients.
And you've been testifying before this board
And I
for quite a
have
number of years.
testified in front of this board, yes.
May I offer-
Everything is current?
Yes.
In support of this application, you prepared a site plan, am I correct?
Yes.
All right, why don't we identify that, and we're going to mark that as A1 for identification. Is that the plan that is up on the board?
Yes, that's actually one of the sheets in the set of plans.
And
Sheet
what
number
is
2.
the last revision date of the plans?
The last revision date of the plans is May 16th of 2023.
Let's go through those plans.
Okay, so I'm going to start with sheet number 2, which is the sheet that's up on the board right now. It's known as the Existing Conditions and Removals Plan, sheet 2 of 10 of the site plan set. This sheet is actually dated May 9th of 2023, as it was submitted to the board. So just to get everybody orientated, north is generally up on the plan. Asbury Avenue runs along the top of the sheet in a west to east direction. And then we have Langford Avenue along the right side, Comstock Avenue along the left side, and Sewell Avenue along the bottom of the sheet. The parcel has a street address of 1012 Asbury Avenue and is known as Block 501, Lots 1 and 2. It contains 1.2 acres and is located in the B Business District, as well as the new 1012 Asbury Avenue redevelopment plan area. Asbury Avenue is also known as Monmouth County Route 16, so it's under county jurisdiction. Asbury Avenue has a 100-foot right-of-way and allows for two-way traffic. Parking and sidewalks exist on both sides of the street. There's also a bus stop near the northwest corner of the property, near Comstock. Both of the intersections at Comstock and Langford are signalized. Langford, over here on the right, is a local street with a 50-foot right-of-way. It also allows for two-way traffic and has sidewalks and parking on both sides. And Comstock, over on the left, it's a local street with a 52.5-foot right-of-way that allows for two-way traffic and also has sidewalks and parking on both sides. The surrounding uses are a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential space. The site is currently developed as an automotive repair facility with the main building near the intersection of Langford facing Asbury Avenue. There's also a small shed building facing Langford Avenue. The balance of the site is utilized as storage and parking for vehicles. The existing impervious surfaces are shown in shaded areas on this plan so that they stand out. We have pavement areas, concrete areas, and also the building, which is hatched. So you can see that the majority of the site is impervious. Actually 78% of the site. Also, some of the impervious surfaces associated with the automotive repair facility extend into the right-of-way of Asbury Avenue. So they exist between the sidewalk area and the right-of-way line of the property. There are 8 driveways along Asbury Avenue right now, providing access to the site. There are also 2 driveways on Langford and 1 driveway over on Comstock. The existing buildings violate several of the setback requirements of the redevelopment plan. Along Langford Street, there's a 0-foot setback allowed, but the existing shed structure actually extends over the right-of-way line by 0.2 foot. In the rear of the property, there's an 8-foot setback requirement, but the existing main building is only set back 0.2 foot from the rear property line. And finally, the existing main building has an intrusion into the right-of-way of 3.7 feet along Langford, where only 3-foot intrusion is allowed by the redevelopment plan. I'm going to go to the next sheet. Okay. All right, this is sheet 3 of 10 of the site plans. It's known as the layout plan. It's also dated May 9th of 2023.
First comment I'll make is that the proposed building does comply with the redevelopment plan. The existing automotive repair building and shed, as well as all of the impervious surfaces associated with the parking and storage of vehicles, are being demolished. That will help eliminate the setback issues associated with the existing building and the redevelopment plan. The new structure, which will be described in detail by the project architect, is 53 feet high, 4-story mixed-use building with 101 residential units, 8,384 square feet of mixed-use community facility space, and garage parking. It's situated along the right-of-way lines of Comstock, Asbury, and Langford, as the redevelopment plan allows for 0-foot front setbacks. The required rear setback is 8 feet, and the building is proposed to be at 9 feet in the rear yard. There's a proposed canopy at the center of the building that does extend into the Asbury Avenue right-of-way by 1.9 feet, but the redevelopment plan allows a 3-foot encroachment into the right-of-ways. Approval from Monmouth County will be required for that encroachment.
Am I correct, there are no encroachments into any of the city property?
That's correct.
Go on.
We're maintaining the existing curb lines along the surrounding streets, Comstock, Asbury, and Langford, but we are going to reconstruct all the curb and make sure that they're ADA accessible. We're also proposing bump outs near the intersections of Comstock and Langford. The 8 driveways along Asbury Avenue are being eliminated, which allows for 20 on-street delineated parking spaces. The driveways on Comstock and Langford are being replaced with driveways to access the proposed garage. The new sidewalk along all the streets will also be ADA accessible. The New Jersey Transit bus stop near the northwest corner will remain. It's shifted slightly because of the bump out, but it will remain. The on-site and off-site traffic circulation, including emergency vehicle access, will be described in more detail by the project traffic engineer. Due to the site configuration and its location at the 2 intersections, it's anticipated that emergency vehicles will service the site from the adjoining roadways. Access to the building is provided at multiple points along Asbury Avenue. There's a series of sidewalks coming up to the building at different locations along that frontage. There's an elevation difference from the west to the east. The building drops about 2 feet across that frontage, but the grading's been designed such that all of the building entrances will have ADA accessible routes from the new sidewalk on Asbury Avenue. Parking is provided inside the building. The redevelopment plan requires 1 parking space per multifamily unit. There are 101 units proposed, which would require 101 spaces, and there are 101 parking spaces proposed. There's no credit being taken for the 20 spaces proposed along Asbury Avenue. The redevelopment plan allows for both standard-sized parking spaces at 8.5 feet by 18 feet, and also compact spaces at 7.5 by 15 feet. The layout proposes 98 standard spaces measuring 9 by 18, so slightly wider than required. And there are 3 compact spaces which measure 9 by 15, again slightly wider than required. 5 of the 98 standard spaces are accessible spaces. A maximum of 25% of the spaces, or 25 spaces, could be compact, but only 3 compact spaces are proposed. The number of parking spaces conforms with the plan, which was confirmed by Insight and Clark Caton Hints. As requested by Insight, the site plans and architectural plans will be modified to include strobe light systems at the garage entrances to warn pedestrians of vehicular activity. Loading spaces are not required by the redevelopment plan, but the plan does require consideration for a delivery/passenger drop-off area along Asbury Avenue. So what we've proposed right in front of the main entrance right here are 2 15-minute on-street parking spaces. They're each 27 feet long, so oversized for delivery vehicles. Again, right adjacent to the main entrance of the building. Those spaces will be part of the county approval and subject to their approval. Bicycle parking is required within the building, and that will be described by the architect. Exterior bicycle parking is required as part of the street furnishings, but doesn't count towards the interior building parking requirement. We are proposing 3 bike racks along Asbury Avenue, one near the main entrance, one near what I call the secondary entrance towards Comstock to the west, and then another one to the east towards the Langford intersection.
Now, there is a comment in one of the reports as far as an alternative design for those bike racks. Any opposition to that?
No, we'll review the, Donna mentioned the standard details in the other city documents, so we will select one of those. So no issue there. With respect to other street furnishings, we're also proposing a bench near the main entryway. We're not proposing any benches along Comstock or Langford. We've decided that one bench is appropriate for this location. We're trying to limit congregation areas at residential buildings, so we feel that one bench is sufficient in that regard. In the rear of the property, along the rear property line, we have a 6-foot-high board-on-board fence. It'll be a stained cedar fence, and this is required by the redevelopment plan. This will screen the building from the adjacent residences. There will be access gates at either end at Comstock and over at Langford, and those portions of the fence will be set back 1 foot from the right-of-way line as required by the city. The total impervious coverage has been increased from 78% to 90%, and the maximum allowed by the redevelopment plan is 92%. So we comply with that requirement. With respect to stormwater management, we're maintaining the overall drainage pattern to Asbury Avenue and over to the east towards the Langford intersection, so we're not creating any adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. The proposed improvements result in an increase in impervious surfaces on the site itself from 78% to 90%, which I mentioned before, which is about a 6,400 square foot increase in impervious. When we look at the modifications that are proposed within the Asbury Avenue right-of-way, where the driveway and pavement areas are being replaced by landscaping, the project as a whole actually has a reduction in impervious surface. Still, the site is classified as a major development based on the city ordinance section 30.58.4, which is known as the stormwater management requirements for major development. Since the site is located in a metropolitan planning area on the state development and redevelopment plan, it's not required to provide groundwater recharge. It's also exempt from stormwater quality because there's a reduction in regulated motor vehicle surfaces. That's the elimination of the pavement on the exterior of the site. The site still, though, needs to address stormwater quantity due to the increase in the on-site impervious, so we're proposing a 7,060 square foot green roof above the garage, with access actually through the garage. The green roof will reduce the post-development site runoff to at or below the pre-development rates. Under section 30-58.3 of the city's standard, a green roof meets the requirement of incorporating green infrastructure. However, the resultant runoff rates don't meet the required rate reductions. As indicated in Insight's letter, section 30-58.4S of the standard allows for an exception to be granted by the board from strict compliance with the standard where the applicant can demonstrate the inability or impracticability of strict compliance. So we're unable to expand the green roof area beyond what's proposed above the roof, above the garage roof, because we're already taking up all of the space that's available above the garage. It's impractical, we think, to include green roof above the residential units up on the higher levels due to access issues and potential for leaks. And as I had previously stated, the overall improvements for the entire project did result in a net loss of impervious area. Had the design standards allowed us to incorporate the overall project into our analysis, the project would have complied with the city standards without providing any green roof or any other kind of stormwater control. So technically, we are deviating from the standard and we're requesting the board's approval for that.
So we're requesting an exception, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
We did consider rain garden areas in the front and the rear of the project, but found that they weren't practical either. Because most of the building runoff is collected by the rooftop, those small areas that are landscaped now are really too small to generate enough stormwater runoff to make a rain garden feasible. There's just not enough water going into those areas. And also, we believe that the county would have an issue with providing or proposing rain gardens as a stormwater management treatment within their right-of-way. So again, we've decided that rain gardens are not practical. The storm sewer discharge from the site, which includes the building itself and the green roof, as well as the rear of the property that's stretched across the back, will be piped to the county drainage system out at the intersection of Asbury Avenue and Langford. There's no storm sewer proposed within the city right-of-way in either Langford or Comstock. As requested by Insight, we're going to provide additional details regarding the green roof system on the plans. We're also, we had already provided conduit capacity calculations within the stormwater and engineers report, but we still need to provide the operation and maintenance manual for the green roof, and then once approved, that manual will be filed with the county. With respect to utilities, it's likely that all new services will be required from Asbury Avenue. All utility services will be underground. Specifically, the underground electric, telephone, and cable are proposed from an existing pole just to the east of the transformer room of the building, kind of in the middle of the site in this area right here. We've actually had preliminary discussions with New Jersey American Water Company regarding the services, and we will also add additional utility details to the plans as requested by Insight.
Including water service details, am I
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Go on.
The project is going to be constructed in a single phase. There's no phasing for the project. Due to the building covering the entire parcel, staging is expected to occur within the right-of-way area of Asbury Avenue. It's about 25 feet from the curb line to the face of the building, so there's sufficient space there for the staging. To accommodate this, the existing sidewalk along Asbury, as well as the two side streets, will be closed during construction. All streets do have sidewalk on the opposite sides of the street, so pedestrian circulation is minimally impacted. There is some signage proposed for the project that will be discussed. It's all attached to the building. That will be discussed by the project architect. Let me go to one more plan here. Okay. This is a rendering that we prepared for the proposed landscaping and lighting. It's actually a colored version of the landscape plan that was submitted as part of the site plan application, sheet 5 of 10 of the site plans. The only modifications we made to this plan when we colored it was we included the locations of the proposed light fixtures. They're in small yellow dots and they fall under the canopy area all the way across the front of the building. And then there's also light fixtures proposed at the garage entryways on Langford and Comstock. That's the only change we made to this plan when we colored it. It was easier than creating a separate rendering just for the lighting. So with respect to landscaping, we've got landscaping proposed along the three frontages as well as in the rear. The frontages for Comstock and Langford are under city jurisdiction, and Asbury Avenue is under the jurisdiction of the county. Along Comstock and Langford, the project proposes red maples, 2 red maples on each street, spaced at 50 feet on center. The trees are sized at 3 to 3.5 inch caliper, and they'll be installed in mulched pits in the grass strip between the curb and the sidewalk.
Can I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
Was this plan submitted in advance? Or was
The
it part of
landscape
A1?
plan was part of the submittal. All we did was color it.
So this is a new plan? because
This is a
of
new
coloring?
plan. Does it have to be?
So let's mark it A2.
That's fine.
All right.
Yep.
Right, so this is consistent with what was submitted, except this is a colored version of it, am I correct?
Yes. And I have those handouts if anybody wanted to see it.
You said it was sheet 5, right?
Yes. So again, I mentioned the red maples that are proposed on Comstock and Langford. Along Asbury Avenue, we're actually maintaining the existing 30-inch London plane tree near the Comstock intersection. And then we're installing 10 more London plane trees along the parking area of Asbury Avenue. Those are spaced at about 45 feet on center. They're also 3 to 3.5 inch caliper in mulch pits within the grass strip between the curb and the sidewalk. At the bump out areas, we're proposing ground cover in the bump out areas. And then between the new sidewalk for Asbury Avenue and the face of the building, we have a series of landscape areas that propose hardy, naturalized, and native plantings, including ornamental trees, shrubs, grasses, and ground covers with decorative stone accents. And that goes across, you can see, all the way across the front of the building here. Okay. Along the rear property line, we're proposing Japanese maples. These will be installed at 10 to 12 feet in height at 65 foot on center, and the balance of that area will also be ground cover. Clark Kate and Hintz's review letter had some comments relating to plant species, which we'd be happy to coordinate with Donna to satisfy their concerns. We will also update the planting notes. They're on here somewhere down there. They are, as requested by Donna. Let's see. Oh, lastly is about the lighting. The proposed lighting for the on-site walkways and the garages is based on all building-mounted fixtures, which are the under canopy lights along the front of the building here. These will be discussed in a little more detail when you see the architecturals, as well as entrance lights at the two garages on Comstock and Langford. Their proposed fixtures are 2700 Kelvin color temperature, non-glare, full cutoff, and fully shielded, and would be controlled by photoelectric sensors and or circuit timers. So,
And the Kelvins of that?
2700?
Very good.
Yep. The lighting levels that are shown on the lighting plan, not on here, but they do take credit for the existing light fixtures along Asbury Avenue, which is a combination of Cobra heads and some floodlights for the existing fixtures. The lighting along the public sidewalks on all three streets is provided by those existing fixtures, and there's no proposed changes to any of the fixtures along the three streets. There are no exterior lights proposed on the project that require a separate electrical service. There's also no lights proposed along the rear of the building adjacent to these residential units. And we've also provided the 6-foot board-on-board fence to prevent headlight glare from the parking garage going towards the residential units. As requested by Insight, there'll be some clarification to the lighting details on the plans, and the light plan itself will be revised to include the lighting levels at the property line to confirm compliance. And that revised lighting plan will also address Clark Kate and Hint's request for more detailed lighting analysis. The last thing I have on my agenda here is to talk about the review letters that we've received. We have the Insight Engineering Review Letter dated June 22nd. Most of those comments have been addressed in testimony, but there are a few I wanted to hit that were towards the end of the letter. Item number 38, relative to the Monmouth County Planning Board. Approval with the Planning Board is pending. We submitted initially in May and recently resubmitted to address the completeness items. Any construction within the Asbury Avenue right-of-way is under their jurisdiction, including that right-of-way encroachment for the canopy overhang. Item number 39 in Insight's letter requested whether or not the project needed a NJDEP treatment works approval, and the answer is yes. So we will at some point in the future submit for that. Number 40 asked about other outside agency approvals. No other applications have been submitted, but we will obtain all necessary approvals. And then number 41 was regarding city sewer connection fees, which we will coordinate through the city engineering office. The second review letter was from Clark Kate and Hintz.
Before we get to that, there's a comment with regard to the monitoring wells and the LSRP. So that LSRP letter will be submitted, is that correct?
That's correct.
Sure.
And then the second review letter was from Donna's office, Clark Kate and Hintz, dated June 23rd. And I think that I've addressed any engineering-related comments already that she would be looking for. So I don't think I have to go over anything else. That's it.
That's all I have. I think we've covered everything with regard to this application, engineering-wise, and all the comments, as in both the letters that we received from Clark Kate and Hintz and also Insight. And I think we should at least mark the letters from the board professionals, B1 and B2. Sure. All right, why don't we mark then as the board exhibits B1, which is the Clark Kate and Hintz letter dated June 23rd, 2023. The Insight letter I'll mark as B2. Insight letter dated June 22nd, 2023.
Great. Go ahead. So I have a few questions. So the uses along the ground floor where it's indicated mixed use, what is the use there?
The architect will discuss that in the
Okay.
presentation.
So while you're here, you did the planning of the walkways and things? Can I-
Let's coordinate it with the architecture,
Okay,
yes.
so can you zoom into, just sort of like into like one of these areas here? Just so that we can sort of see how it's working.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So each unit is being provided its own walkway, right?
Yes,
What is the width of the walkway?
The width of the walkways as it approaches those entryways is about 5 feet.
So do we know like the level of activity that is anticipated? How many people are we expecting to go in? Is there a particular type of business?
The nature, when we look at the redevelopment plan that was enacted, it provides for a number of different types of uses. Retail.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you. I might suggest that rather than single 5-foot walkways, maybe you gang 2 of them together and so that you can have a more generous way up to that area. Like if you're gonna have a lot of people going in and out, sliding down a 5-foot walkway in front of each door. So maybe you kind of just move these 2 together and give one wider entryway so that you could go to either side door. I just think having the wider walkway with a lot of people coming back and forth would be more helpful. There's a lot of this type of condition in some existing retail, and the planted areas on the sides of the walkway just end up looking really ratty.
Yeah, keep in mind that the way the plan was developed, it's not only going to be retail, it's going to be community facility type use, and also
Understood.
individual,
Even
let me
more
finish, residents that occupy the building can utilize it also as a live-work space.
Understood. I still think that 5 feet for like a kind of high level of traffic would be less good than maybe a wider sidewalk with just some of the planted area, same everything, total amount of planted area staying the same, just figuring out where you kind of think where the entrances might be. Maybe you don't need a 5-foot walkway directly in front of every door. Create a more generous way of approaching. And I don't know what the right number is. It might just be the matter of squishing 2 of them together. So
The other reason that you
see how
have,
this looks nice and wide, and you can kind of imagine retail or some active uses. I think it's great. It's a much
we'll have the architect address it.
I just think that
It may not be practical with the design when we look at those individual units, but we'll go over that with the architect.
There was, I don't think that there was any mention of where the HVAC is going to be, or
That'll be with the architect.
the architect's going to take care of that, and the electrical and all the utilities, where they're going to be? Architect will take care of that? Okay. Can you, I didn't quite understand that there was a mention when we first started that there are no variances.
Correct.
Then as we kept going, there was an exception.
That's not a variance, it's an exception with
Right,
regard to the
but so
stormwater.
can we just go over, because I didn't understand that exception. Does that have to do with stormwater?
Sure. So the stormwater standards require that from the perspective of stormwater quantity, how much water is coming off the site, that we've got to provide reductions from the existing condition to the proposed condition, okay? What we've proposed is, based on the limited area that we had available for the green roof, we can't meet those reductions, but we're not increasing it over the existing flow. We're either meeting or reducing it slightly, but we're not getting it down quite low enough to meet the required reductions. And that's just for the on-site area, just for the 1.2 acre site. When you look at the whole thing, including everything that's going on in the Asbury Avenue right-of-way, we actually have a reduction in overall impervious, which automatically would have reduced the flows to the point where we wouldn't have had to do anything for stormwater. So we're kind of, it's almost like a compromise where had we been able to take advantage of what's happening in the right-of-way, we wouldn't have had to do anything. Instead, we're providing a green roof that at least allows us to meet or slightly reduce the flows.
So what's happening is that because you can't count the right-of-way, that's why.
Yeah, if we
You're
were
in
able to
this
count it,
situation.
we wouldn't have to do anything. We probably wouldn't have a green roof if we could have counted it right.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that the lighting fixtures are going to remain the same as whatever is on the street. There's no new lighting fixtures on the street.
That's correct.
'Cause-
Right now, on all three streets, there's existing Cobra heads and some floodlights. We weren't proposing to modify any of that.
Yeah, because I don't remember what they look like. I think that they're the old.
Yeah, there's like the
Cobra.
highway.
Cobra, yeah,
The old,
long.
they're like the highway ones?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
The bump out on the corner of Comstock there, is that being proposed to be all planted or there, or is it all green? I can't really tell from the thing here.
It's ground cover. The one tree, this is where that large tree exists, so we're salvaging that one tree.
Sure.
We're also modifying the side, it's hard to see on this plan, modifying the sidewalk in this area because we have to provide for the the
Sure.
accessible ramps down. But then once you get past the tree pretty much, then we've got ground cover before we get to the beginning of the new trees.
Was there any consideration to doing a bus shelter there? You have 55% of your units are going to be affordable housing, and that is a bus stop, and it makes sense to have some kind of shelter there for people who are probably going to
I
use the
don't
bus
think we're
stop.
opposed to that, but we have to go through the approval process.
There's one across the street.
Yeah, there is a bus stop actually
Across the street?
right
Yes.
over here.
Yeah, that's great in that direction.
Yeah, in that direction. I think the only contingency here is that we need to get approval. It's subject to approval from the county and probably New Jersey Transit. If we can get those approvals, I don't.
Yeah, and New Transit's already approved one. Actually, we were going to put one in, but we stopped for this project, so.
Oh.
So you could possibly, they're open to doing one as long as the county is.
So the bus stop is right there on this corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there.
There's ground cover all there, so how do
It
you
exists.
access?
Well, we're gonna take care of that when we put the bus.
They have to
Yeah,
do concrete.
We'll work with you.
We'll modify,
Sure.
yeah, we'll modify it.
As long as you're open to it.
I think right now it's just
Yeah.
there. So, but we'll fix it.
One more question about the bump out. I love bump outs. James, does this affect the proposed bike lanes?
Yeah, it does. That's part of a bigger project that we'd have to discuss with the Monmouth County that we already have a grant in for. If it came down to it and we actually did that, we'd probably end up removing the bump outs. But I would say continue with the bump outs as were planned because that's still very much up in the air.
And it might be in here, but is there tree protection notes for that tree?
If there, I will double check. If there's not, we'll be sure to add them.
So, James, sorry to ask, so the bump outs would be flush with, like, that area is parallel parking, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the bike lane is not on the inboard side of the?
It's on, so the biking and walking master plan calls for a two-way bicycle track on the, what is that, the south side of Asbury Avenue. So,
you lose parking on one side, or?
no, it would be moved into the intersection, lanes would be, you wouldn't lose parking. Everything would be shifted more towards the center of the roadway, lanes being narrower and parking on both sides. But the bump outs would be in the way. But that would be something that we discuss as far as, Monmouth County is concerned and bikeways are concerned.
Yeah.
You'd also mentioned something about decorative stone. What was that about? Was that
Yeah.
loose stone or what is that?
Within the planting beds right here, that
Yes.
in front of the building, the corners, these kind of little gray areas here, are just Delaware River stone, just as an accent in those individual landscape beds.
Oh, so I just want to be clear because I'm not sure what that means. But because as you know, when we have plenty of loose stones around by the beach, at all the walkways and whatever, and they're in the walkway, they're on the sidewalk, they're everywhere. They don't stay where they're supposed to be. So I don't know if those are these kind.
Yes, those are those kind.
I struggle with those.
Yeah, and
Because they end up in the sidewalk.
recently it's come up that they're not preferred to use any stone in the right of way as part of mulch beds. Because they're a tripping hazard, they're.
That's fine, we can modify that.
Yes, I mean,
this
the
is
county,
all-
I don't know what the county's gonna say,
Yeah,
but
the county is
yeah.
gonna weigh in too, but we don't have any.
It's just a suggestion.
It's just an accent.
I mean, maybe instead you taper the walkway, because Eric's right, the edges are gonna get trampled. The 5 feet is just enough, if you want people to linger or meet as they're coming and going, you'd want a little more elbow room. And I'm sorry, so, street lighting. So it's the existing Cobra heads, but there are also some spotlights. Are you guys gonna take those down?
Well, we actually went to JCP&L, got all the information for all the lights that are out there, and those lights are in their system, so those are their lights. And we modeled those when we checked the lighting levels in the front of the building.
So it's time to storm the castle? I mean, they're flood spot, they're shining light. I mean, they'll be shining light on your building, but right now they're, lighting up the whole block.
I don't know if we have any power to do anything about that. That's Monmouth County and. All right, anybody else have any other questions? Any planning board members have any other questions for the witness?
That's the architect.
Any other questions from the professionals for this?
Stephanie, for stormwater, did you consider taking the water from the roof into some sort of system, say under the parking lot? To
Yeah.
contain it?
Yeah, and any type of, detain it or infiltrate it?
Detain.
Okay. Yeah, we did. One of the issues we have is we have a relatively shallow connection out at the intersection. The structure's only about 4 feet deep out at the intersection, so we really can't generate any volume under the garage. We actually also thought about an infiltration-based system, but the water table's really high, so again, we can't generate any volume in there. And we felt that meeting the existing flows was close enough. That's what the waiver, or the exception is for.
I think it's worth looking at, if you have 4 feet to work with, I think it's worth looking at what you can do to see if you can meet the quantity requirements of the ordinance somehow. You have a long run, to play with, and with shallow depth and a long run, you might be able to get a lot of water in there. You might be able to accomplish what's required.
All right, we'll take a look.
So, as far as the stormwater goes, it's major development. We don't see many of those. There's a lot of requirements. Most of them don't apply here, and she explained that, and I agree. And the one that they do have to comply with, they're asking for the exception for. We're just having a discussion about that you can comply with it. Because what we're talking about is how much water is being sent out into the public infrastructure. Major developments are looking to reduce flows.
Right.
Right, and there's a whole discussion about why and how and all that kind of stuff. The fact that they're kind of meeting existing flows, not the worst thing in the world, it's, that's okay. But again, the DEP has these requirements, Asbury Park has an ordinance. Can we meet it? If we can meet it, let's meet it. It might not be so bad.
And also, it is a county issue. It's a county, we're tying into the county system. So it's a county review issue also.
Yeah. In other words, they might say the same thing.
They might say the same thing. Or they might say it's okay.
Anyone, any other questions for this, from our professionals?
I said one more. Down in your report, 1.2, it says there's possible relief from standards related to off-street parking and street trees. What is that? It seems like they're meeting everything for off-street parking and street trees.
Sorry, I was just looking something up about the
I'm sorry.
streetlights.
What page is that on?
Right
1.2.
in the beginning.
So and I think I may have missed something in the report, but, so technically, they're not allowed to do compact spaces unless they show they can meet without them in order to be permitted. It's a design exception. And then the street trees. Where's the street tree thing? I think it's just, there's not quite, are they short?
I thought the street trees comply, that's what you actually said.
Yeah.
The street trees comply.
See what happened here.
Under 5.1.
Oh, it's the spacing.
Complies.
It's the spacing. They're approximately 40 feet apart. Some of them are more than 40 feet apart. It's very minor, yeah.
Any other questions for this witness?
Yes. Are there any concerns on this site of contaminated soil because of the prior uses?
Yeah, there is environmental issues out here. There's a LSRP, licensed site remediation professional, already assigned to this project. So we will contact him and have a letter to address the questions that were asked in Jason's letter.
They have it down here at 42.
I would also just want to bolster up Jason's comment about trying to reduce the quantity of stormwater if possible, even if the county says. I mean, it'd be.
We'll take a look.
Any other questions? Okay, next.
Open it up.
Anybody in the public? No. Okay, next one.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to call our traffic expert, Justin Taylor.
Justin, do you want me to leave this up here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, I'm going to leave. Okay.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name and spell your last for the record.
Justin Taylor, Taylor.
Okay.
Amen. Justin, you can sit down. Can you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Surely. I hold a bachelor's in engineering from the University of Delaware. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey as well as Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Texas. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I'm practicing traffic engineering for almost 25 years now and have testified hundreds of boards throughout the state of New Jersey, although I have not had the privilege of being here in Asbury Park before.
Your licenses are current?
License is current.
Amen. Justin, you're familiar with this project, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Why don't we go over the traffic patterns and the traffic that's around the entire area and how this project works within it?
Sure. So my responsibility as part of the project was to take a look and review the project with regards to circulation.
Can you speak into the mic?
Yep.
Thanks.
With regards to circulation, good. With regards to parking and with regards to the capacity of adjacent roadways to ensure that there is sufficient capacity to accommodate the traffic we are proposing. So I'd like to take those three pieces separately and I'll try and hit them all. Ms. Galvin has done a great job describing the way the site lays out. From my perspective, we took a look at where the driveways are located. We want to ensure that there are good visibility and good circulation to get to and from the site. We are proposing a full movement driveway along Comstock, as well as a full movement driveway along Langford, in order to provide circulation both to the east and the west, from the north and the south, to allow vehicles to make their decision of where they're going to come and where they're going to be able to park in the garage. These driveways are designed at 22 feet and are in full conformance with the redevelopment plan for the property. And it's my professional opinion that the location of these will allow for good circulation to and from the site. As I mentioned, we are also providing a 22-foot aisle through the parking garage, which is in full conformance with the redevelopment plan and will provide adequate area for circulation to and from the parking spaces for the residential component of the site. So I do believe that we provide sufficient access and good circulation to and from the facility. We also look at the amount of parking that's being provided. Now, Ms. Galvin also mentioned that the ordinance or the redevelopment plan requires one parking space per unit for the residential component, with no parking requirement for the commercial component of the project. We are providing 101 parking spaces within the garage, which does meet the requirement for the 101 units that are proposed for the facility. There is an added bonus, as she mentioned as well. We are creating 20 parking spaces on Asbury Avenue. Now, if you were to measure the areas in the little grass spaces between the 8 driveways on there, you could probably fit about 6 cars. I know as you drive by, they probably are more parked in front of the driveways, so you might have 8 or 9 cars out there. But I think we're ending up with a net increase in on-street parking in this area as well, which can help to serve the need of the commercial component that may not be walking trips coming to and from this mixed-use space. So I think that from a parking standpoint for the project, we do meet the requirements, and it will be sufficiently parked to accommodate the demand of the project.
Could I just ask, what's the length of the on-street spaces that you're proposing?
They're 22 feet, which meets RSIS requirements, other than the two in the center, which are 27 feet, which will be 15-minute for the drop-off, pickup, UPS, Uber, that sort of thing. So based on the length and the dimensions of those, I think we're providing sufficient parking for the project. And then the final piece that we looked at is determining whether there is sufficient capacity in the adjacent roadway system to accommodate the traffic associated with this project. In order to do that, we looked to the Institute of Transportation Engineers and what in their manual called trip generation to determine what type of traffic the 101 units that we're proposing and the 84,000 plus or minus square feet of retail. In a development such as this, you would assume that there's going to be interaction potentially between the tenants and the retail space. I'm back. You would also anticipate that there is going to be walking trips given the surrounding residential component of Asbury Park in this area. But in order to prepare a conservative, a worst case analysis, we've assumed that both of these uses are kind of standalone in suburbia to get the most traffic that it would ever generate. We take that traffic, which is about at a maximum during any one of the peak hours of about 100 trips, right? And we surcharge that on to the traffic that's already there. In order to do that, we collected traffic count data during the morning commuting hour between 7 and 9, during the evening peak hour between 4:30 and 6:30, and on Saturday during the peak shopping hour of 11 to 2. We counted at the intersection of Asbury Avenue and Comstock, as well as the intersection of Asbury Avenue and Langford, and we took that background traffic data. We surcharged on the volumes associated with the proposed development. One, as I said, taking no account for walking trips or internal interaction between the two uses, but also taking no credit for the existing use that's there. Obviously, the garage has traffic associated with it. There is traffic that's going to and from there. But again, like I said, we wanted a worst case scenario. And what we find is, when we run these analyses, is that we're going to see levels of service D or better at both of those intersections. To me, that says that there is sufficient capacity in those intersections to accommodate the traffic proposed with the project. The two driveways, we have surcharged all the traffic onto the driveways. As we said, these are really for the residential component, but we wanted to take a picture at the worst snapshot. So even though the commercial component may not utilize those driveways or will not, we ran the traffic through that just to analyze it. What we find is these driveways are projected to operate at levels of service B or better during any one of the peak hours. So based upon those analyses, it shows me that there is capacity on Asbury Avenue, on Comstock and Langford to accommodate the traffic that we would project for the proposed project. So in summary, we've taken a look at those three pieces: the traffic capacity, the traffic circulation, and the parking associated with the project. And it's my professional opinion that based on all three, this project is going to be a benefit to the area and that it can be accommodated as we have proposed it.
It would have no adverse impact upon the surrounding area, am I correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have this one.
Will there be any, so I guess, we have all these mixed uses in front, as well as, package delivery, stuff like that, move in, move out. Is all loading in and out going to be in these two spaces in front? Is there any use of loading inside the garage?
There was not intended to be any loading interior to the garage.
I have a problem with that regarding how busy Asbury Avenue is. I don't think that front space is appropriate for commercial use all in the front and the building itself, but I understand where you're coming from. My other question was, you said you added 10, how many spaces did you add along the street?
So when I went out and counted the actual things, if you were to use the 22 feet from RSIS, right? There's 6 spaces that could fit that are not in front of a driveway currently.
Well, there's no drive. No, not currently. So in your, what are you proposing?
We're proposing 20 parking spaces.
20, right? So at 20 at 22 feet.
There are 18 at 22 feet, 2 at 27.
Oh no, yeah, we're not crowding the 27-foot ones. So I understand that 22 feet is what RSIS recommends. I find that to be extremely large, especially in this city. And every time I do spaces, I do 20 or 21 feet. With 20 spaces, if we took a foot off each space, we'd have what, one extra space?
Yes.
2 feet, 2 extra spaces. if everyone's not opposed to that, I would recommend going down to at least 21 feet and adding an extra space, because 22 is just very, very large. And it's comfortable to get in and out of, but it's just not necessary.
But
But
it's
is that
also
something that
county-
we have control over?
Yeah, it's a county road also.
So I think the county's gonna end up have the last say. And they might say 22, but I'd rather go into it asking for the 21. That's why I'm not trying to go any smaller than that, but I just find the 22 just very large.
That's up, that's,
Well, no, we just shift them.
If it's okay with you all.
We're okay with 21, right?
yeah, you know better than we do.
We're okay with 21.
That's my opinion.
No objection.
Absolutely, I have no
Okay,
objection.
yeah.
So-
If the
No,
county-
that it's subject to the county.
Of course, yeah, I understand. I used to work for the county, so if it come back and they say 22 is what it has to be, that's fine. But again, my experience in this city, I find 22 to be very large.
So where are the other feet gonna go to those 227-foot spaces?
No, they're going to say 27. We're saying they're 227 and 15-minute
Right.
spaces. Well, and the point of making them, we had discussed in TRC or DRC, I forget. But we discussed making them 15-minute spaces because they'll probably get people understand them a little better, I think. I live in a building that has the yellow in front, and people will park in the aisle, be like, I can't get in the yellow, I
Right.
get a ticket, and then they
Right.
park in the aisle. So I think the 15-minute spaces will be more useful for residents and for visitors as well as for loading out. I would prefer if some loading happened inside. I think, especially if you have a lot of mixed use up front, trying to share that little space, like 227 spaces, it's large, but depending on what you have. It could get difficult loading in and out, plus with move in, move out, and whatever else, mail
Yeah,
delivery.
the problem that you're going to get with the interior, you're only going to have access for the tenants in there.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be access to either Ubers or Amazon or any delivery service. That's why it's going to be
Yeah, you
outside.
can't get to the commercial spaces from within the garage.
Yeah.
Closed off.
Yeah,
Now,
but still,
in terms of the-
package deliveries could be inside, though.
What's that?
Package deliveries. Could
To the
potentially be
main
inside.
lobby.
To the main lot, correct. The 27-foot space, you want to keep those as 27 to 15, or do you want to expand the size?
If you want to
or
keep it
not?
27, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I understand what its use is for and why it's there, so I get it. And again, if you're not going to be using inside,
We might need to take them down to 26, only the 20 spaces along the frontage include those two 27s. So if we're going to pick up one more space, we're going to have to shave a foot from those as well.
that works for
But-
me. That
Okay.
works.
I mean, 26 is more than sufficient for a UPS to pull in.
Agree with you.
Wait, we're picking up 20 feet and those two spaces are right in the middle. Where's that extra space gonna go?
So you're going to end up with the two 27s slightly offset in order to pick up where it's going to be. But they're still going to be right in front of the main area. They just might not be directly centered on the front door.
So when you did the analysis of this traffic flow, what the part that I'm struggling with is that if we're assuming, did you assume, like, let's say when people came out on Langford or Comstock, that they were going to be going north or south, that they would, like, you split that in half? Because my concern is that you have two lights. And if people are coming out, they're stuck. And I understand it, but I'm just saying that I didn't understand how it could be like, oh, we're okay. I don't get that.
So, I mean,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I do, absolutely.
Okay.
And there are a couple different, I'm sitting on the cord, sorry. So there's a couple different pieces to that. We're assuming during the commuting hours,
Yes,
right?
commuting hours,
That
absolutely.
people are most likely more oriented towards the west, right? They're heading towards the Parkway 1835 if they're coming out to work. We took a portion of the traffic out. For the vast majority, we have them coming out of, say, the driveway on the Comstock, making a right and coming up to the signal, right? It's just human tendency that if you want to go west, you're probably going to go west. You're not going to come to Langford and go up, but there's a certain percentage that's going to do that. We also assume that there's a certain percentage of employment that's going to be in Asbury Park, in Interlake, and in Belmar, and they're going to be heading east and taking, Memorial down. So we look at that, we look at where the population centers are, and we also look where the employment centers are of in the general area. And we come up with a directional distribution. And we applied the trip generation that I mentioned to you based upon that directional distribution, and then analyze the driveways.
But is everybody going towards the lights in your analysis, or are you thinking that they're coming east on Comstock or east on Langford?
So we anticipate from a commercial percentage of about 10% of the overall commercial traffic coming from the south on either Comstock or Langford. 5 and 5 is where we, so about 10%.
So you're saying about 10% go the other way?
South.
Go
Right,
south, right, come to and from the south.
The opposite of the lights?
Correct.
Okay.
From a residential, from a commercial analysis point, from the residential, we actually did not take anybody that way.
All right, everybody went to the light.
Everybody went to the
Okay.
lights.
All right, and with that, you still came up with, we're good?
That's correct. The levels of service D are better. Yep.
Okay. And D is good?
In New Jersey, D is great.
What's B? B's better?
B is better, yes. No, but honestly, in this area, given the timings of the lights, right, a level of service D is great. One of the reasons we look at this and another way we evaluated it, when you come up to that light, you're going to sit for maybe 37 seconds on average, right? But you're going to clear every time. You're not going to sit through 2 lights to try and get through the signal. You're going to come up and maybe you're the 4th car in line and you're going to wait that certain amount of time and you're going to go. So seeing that, I think there's more than sufficient capacity to accommodate the additional
Because I'm
traffic.
just concerned about, because Asbury is the main road, and you don't want to make that light any longer.
Nope.
Any more red than it is now. All right, you guys know better than I do. Okay. Anything else?
I also think that a certain amount of the traffic coming out will, after a little bit of trial and
Jim, I
error,
can't hear you.
we'll figure out a different route.
He's saying that some traffic might find a different route after some trial and error. And we
Yeah,
might,
after
have less on
they
Asbury.
get started, they'll figure out what the better ways of going.
As a resident,
If there
yes,
are
you're going to
issues.
start to know that there's other ways
Okay.
through the city network, for sure.
All right, and I'm also assuming that, and this is probably a question for transportation, is kind of like, I'm assuming that there's going to be some more what do you call it? Striping having around those driveways, so that we might lose a space or two, or space on either side of Langford and Comstock, because there's no striping there now.
So I think you're going to end up netting the same amount of on-street parking along those streets because there are driveways associated with the site now in that area.
In those areas.
Yeah, they're not in the exact same
But we're
location.
gonna have to stripe them anyway.
Not necessarily.
To protect the end corners now?
Not necessarily. Usually we do the corners, the no parking zone, but we don't necessarily have to do stalls. That could be something that we review later on.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about just like a couple of feet away from the garage.
Oh, yeah,
Not the
a little
whole-
like
not all
corner
the striping.
delineator, we could do that.
Yeah, but whatever's safe, whatever you guys determine is safe. Anybody else have any questions? This witness? No? Any, our professionals have any questions? No? Any of the public have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
One more witness tonight.
We have 15 minutes.
Get through as much as we can.
Good.
Swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And you state your name for the record, spelling your last.
Alexander Merlucci, Merlucci.
If I may. Alex, can you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Architecture from the New Jersey School of Architecture at NJIT. I've been a licensed architect in New Jersey since 2015. I'm also licensed in Connecticut, New York, and Pennsylvania, and I've appeared before many planning boards in the state of New Jersey in this capacity.
And your license is current?
Yes.
Amen.
Okay.
Alex, you're familiar with this project, am I correct?
Yes.
And you prepared plans relative to this project, am I correct?
Yes.
All right, what I'm going to do is take a look at what you have up on the screen. I first want you to identify what's up on the screen. We're going to have that marked.
Yes, what's up on the screen is an updated version of A002, which was submitted in the planning board package. This has been updated to adjust the size of the penthouse and the final location of the landscaping per the civil engineer.
And do we have the last revision date on that?
This is today's date.
right, so this has to be, we have
Marking
to,
this A3.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to be fast and exciting so nobody falls asleep on me. So this, what I have up on the screen is a rendering view of the project from the corner of Comstock and Asbury. What we're talking about is a 4-story building that is 53 feet in height with a penthouse that complies with the penthouse requirements of the redevelopment plan. There are 4 key design principles that went into the design of this building that I'll cover: ground floor activation, facade variation, high quality timeless materials, and placemaking. So on ground floor activation, you'll see that we've integrated what has been referred to and is clarified in the redevelopment plan as mixed use community facility space along the building length, integrated with this concept of a porch. So the idea here was that we wanted to provide for an active ground level, but didn't want to limit ourselves only to retail. We also liked the idea of live-work units, but didn't want to limit ourselves just to live-work because that could be a limiting factor. So what we did was we integrated a porch level along the entire ground floor, and the concept of the mixed-use community facility space allows for all types of different uses, including retail, restaurants, professional offices, artist galleries, lofts, and exhibit studios, etc. They can also be used as live-work either via a connection to the residential units above or for any of the units within the building. We didn't want to limit these 11 spaces on the ground floor just to the units directly above them. So we have the ability to add stairs that connect above, or somebody that lives on the 4th floor could also have a live-work unit where their apartment is on the 4th floor and they have a live-work space on the ground floor. So the idea, again, is to preserve flexibility and make sure that we can, at the end of the day, have a project that is active on the ground level. We've also located our amenities on the ground floor. We have an 1,100 square foot amenity room that I'll show you in the plan in a moment. Again, bringing that activation to the ground floor. And then an abundance of storefront with areas compliant with the redevelopment plan, which you'll see all along the frontage, and you can see here in the rendering. It's in a black metal storefront with expansive glazing. On the facade, one of the important elements for us was to provide for excitement and variation along the length of the building. So we broke this down into 3 areas that are centered on the main lobby, which you can see in the center of the building, where we talked earlier about those loading spaces. So we've strategically sculpted this facade in order to step up from the corner. At the corner of Asbury and Comstock, you can see that there is a setback at every level on the building in order to provide for a stepping of the massing from the 2-story all the way up to the 4-story, rather than one bulk mass along its length. So you'll see at the corner condition is stepped from the 2nd floor and then again up at the 4th floor. And then at the middle portion, which you can see here in where the red brick is first located, we bring that up to the 4th floor with, again, a setback, and that kind of defines the middle of the length to the right side, and the same thing happens on the left side. And then we have our lobby, which is the largest and most easily identifiable along the length where that red brick runs up to the entirety of the 4th floor. This also helps to define a bottom, middle, and top via the use of materials and that massing, which I'll talk about in a minute. The third item was high quality timeless materials. So we've used a red tone brick on the ground floor and projecting elements, which runs up to the 3rd floor in the middle mass and then the 4th floor in the center. We've used a gray brick on the setback areas. So that happens again on 2, 3, and 4 where it steps back. And then a wood tone material on the top penthouse floor, which ties into wood tone trellises that exist above the windows on these setback areas, which you can see here and here. And then finally, the idea of placemaking was important because this is an opportunity for us to be able to bring the vibrant downtown down Asbury Avenue further west. And so one of the things that we felt important here was to integrate the mixed-use elements that I talked about earlier, which will be complementary uses to the residential units above. And then most notably is the idea of the mural wall, which is located on Asbury Avenue, which you can see in this rendering. I'm sorry, Comstock, which you can see in this rendering. This isn't the mural that is proposed. It's just an indication of where that mural would go. The mural will be a minimum of 750 square feet in size, and we will work with the Public Art Commission and a local artist or artist group for the design of that mural. The location was chosen here because this feels a critical gateway as you enter the city of Asbury along Asbury Avenue. I'm going to talk quickly on this rendering before I move on to the floor plans just about signage. The signage that is proposed does comply with the redevelopment plan. What we're proposing is one residential sign at the main lobby along Asbury Avenue that will be under 20 square feet. It will be backlit channel cut letters affixed to a canopy at that entry. That backlighting will be halo lighting only. It will be shielded and it will be 2700K. On the Langford and Comstock sides, you can see here on the Comstock side that we have a residential sign located above the garage entry. The same exists on the Langford side. That's to identify the residential entry to the garage. That garage will have a roll-up security grill that tenants will be able to access via a transponder when they enter. On the non-residential side, each one of the community facility spaces will get one wall or canopy sign under 20 square feet, as well as one blade sign hung from the canopy at under 10 square feet. And then all the building address signage will be 6-inch tall letters affixed to the appropriate storefront that is assigned that address. I know I'm moving quickly, but somebody told me I only have 15 minutes, so. Okay, so moving on to the ground floor. What I have up on the screen is the same A100 drawing that was submitted, but it is colorized for purposes of the presentation. There have been no changes to the layout.
All right,
since
and what I'm
submitted.
going to do is I'm going to mark as A4 then the floor plan section of the plans. And what I want to do is just have the last revision date on it.
2023. So just again to reiterate the statistics of the project, it's 101 residential units. 55 of those residential units are affordable and 46 are market rate. On the affordable side, there are 11 one-bedrooms, 33 two-bedrooms, and 11 three-bedrooms. Those units are designated within the plans. The final designations of those units may be subject to adjustment based upon the funding source requirements, but the affordability of those units will be deed restricted and tied to title for the property, so they cannot be changed to market rate. The project also includes 11 community facility spaces, so you can see those along the length of Asbury Avenue in orange. They are about 750 square foot each, and as I mentioned earlier, those allow for a variety of uses that will activate the ground floor. The parking, which is located behind those community facility spaces and not visible from Asbury Avenue, includes 101 parking spaces total. That includes 5 ADA spaces and 3 compact spaces. As required by the sustainability items of the redevelopment plan, we will comply with the New Jersey requirements for the electrical vehicle charging stations, which states that we need to provide 15% make-ready vehicle charging stations, with 1/3 of those spaces with the chargers installed at TCO or CO, and then the remaining 10 over the first 6 years of the project's life. The building also includes 30 bike parking stations within the garage. They are located on the west side of the building. There's 20 spaces. These are duplex bike storage racks by a company called Dero. There's also another set of 10 storage racks located by the lobby entry from the parking area. The building lobby is located in the center of the building, as I noted in the rendering. It also includes a package room, mail room, and access to the amenity space, as well as a management office. On the ground floor, we also have a trash compactor room, which is 16 by 24, approximately 350 square feet. That trash compactor will be adequate for all the trash for the 101 units. Each floor has a trash room where tenants can put their trash into the trash chute. It will be brought down to the trash compactor, compacted, and then stored in the trash holding room, which is located on the right side of the page on the Langford side of the building. That room is 371 square feet, and where trash and recyclables will be held for pickup by the hauler. The community facility space tenants will also bring their trash to that same trash holding room. Recyclables will be separated per floor in receptacles for commingled or paper, and then brought down to the ground floor by building maintenance staff. I think I covered everything on the ground floor.
In terms of the hauler, it has not been determined if a private or public hauler is going to be utilized. That'll be negotiated with the redevelopment agreement. Am I correct?
That is correct. Also on this page is the basement level plan. I just want to mention this because one of the important things that we've included is an electric meter room in the basement. So those electric meters will be internal to the building, as well as water meter, sprinkler room, and gas utility meter room. Those are subject to approval by the local utility providers, but that is our intent at this point. On the ground floor, we also have a transformer room allocated next to the lobby near the pole that the civil engineer referenced as the location for the incoming electrical service.
Going back to the parking for a second, there's a comment with regard to wheel stops in one of the reports. You okay with that?
Yes, we're okay to add the wheel stops for the parking spaces. Moving up to the second floor and typical upper floor plans. As I mentioned earlier, we have 101 units total. What I want to highlight on the second floor plan is the green roof area that was mentioned by the civil engineer. You can see this hatched area around the building perimeter. That is 7,000 square feet of green roof. It will not be accessible by those tenants, as we don't want them to be walking on the greenery. You can see, however, in this plan that the abundant setbacks do allow for other areas of tenant access to roof space at the second floor level as well as the third floor level. The rest of the roofs throughout the building will be cool white EPDM roofing. And I'm going to flip up to the top floor plan because I want to talk about the penthouses for a minute. So on the fourth floor, there is communication between that floor and the penthouse level for 21 of the apartments. There are 33 total on that floor. That penthouse level is 26% of the ground floor area, where 35% is allowed by the redevelopment plan. We were able to get that 35% because of our providing the 55% affordable units. On the rooftop, we will have limited mechanical equipment on the rooftop because the building is anticipated to include a package terminal unit for the apartment HVAC. There are areas designated on the plan for that mechanical equipment, which will be generally concealed behind the penthouse in areas that we've notched out at the back side that you can see here and here. But we will conceal that mechanical equipment either behind screening or behind the parapet so it's not visible from the street. On the sustainability side, we will comply with the sustainability requirements of the redevelopment plan, as this project will receive tax credits from the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. Their qualified allocation plan requires us to participate in the Energy Star multifamily new construction program or something similar. What that means is that this building will be designed to perform a minimum of 50% better than the ASHRAE 90.1 baseline energy code. That means that all the exterior walls, the windows, the roofing insulation will all be upgraded a minimum of 15% based upon what a normal code level building would have to do. We will also include low flow plumbing fixtures, Energy Star appliances, LED lighting, and high performance HVAC equipment. I think I covered everything. I went 1 minute over.
A few things that I want you to hit on. The canopy.
Oh, yes. The canopy, so just running back to the materials for a minute, we covered the brick. The windows are intended to be a black window with an integral HVAC louver. The canopy, as well as the porch roofs, are intended to be a matte black metal.
In terms of the lighting on the roof,
the penthouses will be equipped with a small sconce located outside the door access to their rooftop terraces. They will not spill light onto the street, and we will add those to the plans.
They'll be dark sky compliant?
Yes.
They'll be downlit?
Correct.
And more than 2,700 K?
Correct. All lighting will be 2,700 K.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the openings in the back in the garage area.
Yes, so if I go to I'll go to the elevation.
All right, can I just say that we haven't gone through the reports yet, and we still have,
We pretty much hit just about everything in the report.
we still have to go through the reports, and we're at the 10 o'clock hour. So I'd like to propose that we come back, reschedule.
Can I do one thing? If he can just finish up the question I just posed to him,
Sure.
because after that, we're done with the direct examination. It's really
Okay.
just reports at that point.
Okay.
The openings in the back?
Yeah, so the garage is designed as an open garage, and what that means is, based upon the building and mechanical codes, 50% of the wall area needs to be opened. So we've left openings at the rear of the garage that will allow for that to be non-mechanically ventilated. And the rear of the property does have a board-on-board fence which will conceal any headlights from the garage.
Want to set a new date?
Can I ask a question about the back of the building? Is it completely open? Is there like a lower wall or anything?
There's a short wall up to approximately 2 feet above the slab where the cars will park.
And it's all open?
And then it's open.
Okay.
You can see the openings here on the elevation.
Oh, okay, when you zoom in, it makes it look clear.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay.
The next available,
We had held a spot on July 17th, if that,
Yeah, it's imperative that we get this done before August, because if we don't, then unfortunately, we don't have.
on July 17th.
all right, so we've held,
I held
we already have a spot.
Just in case.
Okay.
Because we only have one meeting
Okay.
that month. So July 17th?
Perfect.
All right, then when we come back, then we'll go through any questions that everybody has, any reports, and any comments. And you'll be coming back with the, having to do with stormwater. And that's pretty much, everything else will be out of the county, having to do with Asbury Ave. All right, and make a motion to carry this to July 17th with no further notice.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Second.
James?
Second. Okay, all right, and motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All in favor?
We're done.
Thank you.
10:04.